I just sent him the link again. Once we get going here, which we are live on YouTube now, it looks like, Mayor. I can try to call him real quick.
He said he just got through. There he is.
He's connecting. Welcome, Jeff.
All right, there it is.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Welcome to the March 9th, 2021 Board of Alderman meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Begin with a pledge of allegiance, and there will be a flag that will be on the screen. Since you all try to read it one time or quote one time, it doesn't sound very good on Zoom. So I'll be reading it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Preamble for the Missouri Constitution. We, the people of Missouri, with profound reverence for the supreme ruler of the universe and grateful for his goodness, do establish this Constitution for the better government of the state. We'll ask Ted Martin to give the invocation.
Good evening, board. Just please join me in prayer. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for another beautiful day in the Ozarks. Thankful for the season about to wake up in Branson as our businesses start welcoming thousands of guests each day, especially as we enter the spring break season. Father, we thank you for Carly Allison, our city parks employee that we recognize tonight, for her work, for our fellow employees and guests that come to Recplex and the parks facilities, and thankful for all the city employees that serve in the different departments here, 200 plus employees. Father, we thank you for this board, for their time tonight, and we invite you into this meeting as we look at this agenda, that tonight we do business of the city, but business that would be honoring to you and to our community. Father, we love you, praise you in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Ted Martin, Fire Chief. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
King,
Present.
Whitus,
here.
Simmons,
Here.
Akers,
Here.
Skanes,
Here.
Milton,
Here.
C.
Here.
Your Honor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Welcome to our board meeting tonight. I would like the city clerk to read the introduction for this virtual meeting. Madam Clerk.
This meeting is being held virtually due to the COVID-19 virus and the recommendation of the Centers for Disease Control, along with the state and city emergency proclamations that are in effect. We will review our procedures for conducting tonight's meeting. Participants in this meeting who will be joining the meeting virtually include members of the Board of Aldermen and city staff. The microphones of all board members and staff members participating in the meeting should be muted at all times as not to impede the ability of meeting participants and observers to hear the proceedings. Members of the board or staff who wish to speak will be recognized by the mayor. Members of the public were invited to speak by signing up prior to tonight's meeting by using a link to a speaker sign-up form for virtual meetings. Those who have signed up will be able to speak on the items they requested to speak on. Please note, public comments will be limited to 5 minutes and discussion on all other agenda items will be 3 minutes unless additional time is allowed by the mayor. The speaker will be notified when there's 30 seconds remaining of their allotted speaking time. Mayor, please note we have speakers signed up to speak during public comment and on items 5, 6, and 16. The voting procedure for tonight's meeting will be by a roll call vote on every action item before the board. The city clerk will call the name of each board member for their vote and will announce the results.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And you have on your computer a wave sign, or if you want to do it physically, wave when you would like to speak. It would be helpful for me to be able to see that you want to speak. At this point in time, I'd ask Alderman Whitus to please make a special presentation.
It'd be my honor. I kind of have a special place in my heart for anything with the park board, as I served on that before becoming an alderman. And as an alderman, I'm working with that group now. So it is my privilege to announce that Parks and Recreation Business Supervisor Carly Allison is the recipient of the City of Branson's Service of Excellence Employee of the Month Award for March 2021. This award recognizes employees who have gone above and beyond and whose performance exemplifies the City of Branson values. Carly is receiving this award due to her innovation and creativity behind the new Flashlight Candy Cane Hunt event that was hosted by the Parks Department this winter. While COVID-19 threw a monkey wrench at the Parks Department, Carly was instrumental in coming up with a new event like this one that served our community while keeping them safe. One attendee expressed appreciation for this event by saying, "It was an awesome and creative way to give families something safe and fun to do during COVID. My children had a great time and are still talking about it." On behalf of the mayor, board of aldermen, city administrator, and city staff, it is my honor to announce Carly Allison as the City of Branson's March 2021 Service and Excellence Employee of the Month. Congratulations, Carly, and keep up the good work.
This is like a setting ovation, Carly, but it's heartfelt. And congratulations and welcome. Thank you, Alderman Whitus. This is the public comment section of the Board of Aldermen's meeting at this time. Board will hear citizens who have signed to speak up virtually using the speaker sign up form for virtual meetings. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone available to speak?
We have one speaker for public comment, and it's Jansen Crane. He's speaking on mask mandate. His address is 2958 Vineyards Parkway, Unit 5, Branson, Missouri.
Mr. Crane, can you hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
We certainly can. You have 5 minutes and we'll start your time now.
All right. Thank you very much. I am Jansen Crane. I am a candidate for Alderman for Ward 1. And I would like to take a few minutes to submit to you that now is the time to reconsider and repeal the mask mandate. Yesterday, the CDC issued guidance stating that fully vaccinated individuals, which now accounts for nearly a quarter of the population, can meet freely inside without masks and without social distancing. Just this past week, 5 states have either ended their mandates or have promised to end them within the month. These states join the other 11 states, including Missouri, that never had a statewide mandate. Yesterday, Governor Parson praised the fact that many local jurisdictions within Missouri are dropping their mandates as well. He stated that positive cases in Missouri have dropped to only 4.2%, and that we are second in the nation for lowest new COVID cases over the past week. This is happening right here when we are on the brink of spring break and hundreds of thousands of vacationers are choosing to go to these free areas rather than to Branson. Nobody will argue the fact that our economy has suffered greatly because of this pandemic, but we have the opportunity to start out the 2021 season with a booming economy. If the mask mandate is lifted, I guarantee that people will flock to Branson and our businesses will thrive. This is because, contrary to a recent comment by Alderman C., most Americans really do want freedom. Alderman C. recently stated that what people really want is to give up a little bit of their freedom in order to have some safety. I challenge you to make that same comment to a veteran or to somebody that has lost some family members overseas. Those people have sacrificed all safety and all security in order to fight for that freedom that you are so willing to give up in the name of safety. To anyone that truly does want to give up freedom for safety, let me give you a quick history lesson. The year was 1933. The minority party in the German parliament was in the middle of a brutal election cycle where they were desperately trying to win the majority. With a few weeks left in this election, the German Reichstag, which is their Capitol building, was suddenly raided and burned to the ground. The Nazi Party blamed this horrendous act on a group of extremists from the opposing party. They began to spread propaganda that the country was filled with these radical domestic terrorists, resulting in widespread fear and panic among the Germans. The Nazis convinced the people that if they were elected, they would keep everyone safe by eliminating this terrorist threat. Their tactic worked. The Nazis overwhelmingly won in an election that saw record voter turnout, resulting in their taking of the majority of the government. The newly elected leader, Adolf Hitler, kept his promise by convincing the people to back a bill that would give Hitler the power to unilaterally round up all these threats to the people of Germany and throw them into concentration camps. This ultimately led to one of the most horrendous tragedies in history, which of course is the Holocaust. The people of Germany were ultimately convinced that it was best to sacrifice a portion of their freedom, the right to trial by jury, among others, for the sake of safety. Now, I'm not equating the mask mandate to the Holocaust by any means, but I am saying that the mindset that we are getting into is very dangerous. If we are willing to sacrifice freedom, however small or temporary, for safety or security, what will we be willing to give up next? Will we be willing to sacrifice our freedom to bear arms because the government says it's for our safety? Will we start giving up our freedom of speech because of the fear of offending people? Will we give up the freedom of religion for the same reason? Will we eventually allow the government to silence those that disagree with them? It is a dangerous path we are treading. The people of Branson are determined to regain our freedom and values on April 6th, but there is no reason that we should have to wait that long for things to start changing. I urge you, repeal this mask mandate now and restore Branson to the haven of freedom and patriotism that we have always been known for. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other speakers?
No, that's all of our speakers.
All right. Ready to move on to the consent agenda. It's my understanding that we have a request for items 5 and 6 to be brought down from the first and second items to become the first and second items on the regular agenda. Any items the board would like pulled down? Madam Clerk, would you keep the items on the consent agenda as amended?
Your Honor, the items on the consent agenda are as follows. Approval of the Board of Alderman minutes for the February 18th, 2021 study session and February 23rd, 2021 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of Finance Committee minutes for the December 17th, 2020 regular meeting. Acknowledge receipt of Advisory Park Board minutes for the January 19th, 2021 meeting. Acknowledge receipt of Human Resources Committee minutes for the January 2021 meeting. Final reading of Bill number 5965, an ordinance approving the addendum with HDR Engineering Incorporated for professional consultant services between the City of Branson and HDR Engineering Incorporated for subgrade analysis and preliminary engineering of a flood protection systems at the city's Compton Drive wastewater treatment plant, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Final reading of Bill number 5966, an ordinance amending the adopted 2020 budget for the City of Branson to adjust monies for the mandatory redemption waterfall and debt service payments in the debt service funds and general fund. Final reading of Bill number 5967, an ordinance approving the renewal of the contract with Kimberling City Tire Company Incorporated for the purchase of tires, tubes, and services, and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract. Your Honor, that concludes the reading of the consent agenda.
The floor is now open for a motion approving all items on the consent agenda.
So move.
There's a motion and a second. All right. Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call vote on the consent agenda?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
Key.
Yes.
Your Honor, the vote is 6-0 and it passes.
Okay. Under the regular agenda, now we have item 5 that was moved down from the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction for this item?
Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill number 5962, an ordinance approving high-density residential HDR zoning for the properties located at 121 Linhart Lane, Branson, Missouri.
Okay, at this time, I believe we have a staff report available from Joel Hornicle.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. Just wanted to take this opportunity to once again bring up this graphic we showed you all during the last board meeting. The only update to it is we did make mention during the last meeting that the parcels in the middle of this image, those that are labeled as 14 and 15, were previously yellow, but as we mentioned again during the last meeting, those are now being represented as being not opposed to this request. As a result, just to go through the three categories again represented on this graphic, out of the 22 total properties as defined by Taney County through Beacon's website, 15 of them are not opposed, or 68%. 7 are opposed, or 32%. And then out of the 9 individual owners within Friendly Hills, 5 are not opposed, or 56%. 4 are opposed, or 44%. And then out of the total land area of Friendly Hills are 60 acres. 46.5 of those acres represent being not opposed, or 77.5%, and 13.5 acres being opposed, or 22.5%. Again, just you'll hear from some of the residents this evening that have signed up. And I do just want to also mention all of which are represented on this graphic as being opposed to the request. Happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you. At this point in time, you've heard the first reading of bill number 59, final reading of bill number 5962. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All right. Then at this point in time, we would invite the speakers that want to speak tonight, and then any alderman that would like to say something, be planning on your thoughts. At this point in time, Madam Clerk, would you please read their name and addresses and bring them into the meeting?
The first speaker is Liz Kirby. Address is 189 Friendly Hills Drive, Branson, Missouri.
Ms. Kirby, can you hear us okay?
I can. And let me, I don't know if I can turn my, I don't know if we need my video on, but as long as you can hear me, that's okay. You can see my picture, I guess.
Yeah, it's audio only.
Okay, perfect.
Your 5 minutes now and you can begin.
Thank you very much. I am the owner of 189 Friendly Hills Drive with my husband, and we are opposed. We are directly next to the property that they are going to convert or plan to convert to the high HDR on 121 Linhart. You know, we specifically bought a home that was in a neighborhood and not in an area where condos were. They've already taken down all of the trees that are essentially, when I look out my front door, all I see is the condos. So aesthetically, that is obviously very disturbing to us. We're already dealing with the noise. I can't imagine the noise factor is going to go up significantly if they add those additional condos right in essentially what I'm considering my front yard. I feel like they have plenty of land. There are tons of those condos, and that's perfectly fine. I would think that they don't need those 2 additional lots that are right in our neighborhood. They're just trying to annex and put into the other pieces. So I feel like they have plenty of place. It would be very nice if we could keep it more of a neighborhood, a hometown neighborhood, which is what it is. It's always been a lovely neighborhood. And I feel like this is really impacting why we even purchased our property. It's kind of ruining it for us, a place that we enjoy to go and enjoy being in Branson. So I think that's all that I have. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you for your report. Do any alderman wish to ask any questions? Liz, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, we're ready for the next speaker.
Our next speaker is Deborah Johnston at 104 Linhart Lane, Branson, Missouri.
Ms. Johnston, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I sure can. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right.
3 minutes and I'll start your clock now, ma'am.
All right, great. I'm Deborah Johnston at 104 Linhart. Thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. First of all, I just wanted to address the map that was put up. And as far as our number of lots, we have 24. And as the map shows, not quite so clearly, it looks like we have a split, 12-4 and 12 against. Same thing with homeowners. There's a split, 5 homeowners, 4, or 5 home, sorry about that. I'll have to check on the homeowners. I'm sorry about that part, but anyway. So the decision tonight might appear simple to some of you and considered business as usual. If you vote in favor of the high density residential tonight, my neighborhood will be changed forever. I can only assume that if you make the decision to approve high density residential zoning for these 2 lots, you'll not contest future lots in Friendly Hills annexed into the city. I understand the property surrounding Friendly Hills has been developed as high density residential, but that doesn't mean our neighborhood has to be rezoned. I'm not contesting those developments. I built my home with full knowledge that those properties adjacent could be developed, which they have been and will continue. That being said, I was not expecting to have the city come into my neighborhood and decide what's best for our residents. We all need to consider the future of the Table Rock Lake community, which is a tourist attraction for Branson. You can choose to approve, which will ensure more clearing of the Ozark hillsides overlooking Table Rock Lake, or vote against it, which helps to preserve the natural beauty that so many visitors of Branson have enjoyed in the past and will continue to enjoy with future generations. This ensures countless jobs, not just the few jobs generated from 2 acres in Friendly Hills subdivision, which are the ones in question being rezoned. Once again, I ask that you please deny the high density residential zoning change. And I'm going to take a quick look again. So we have 4 people, owners, that are for the high density and 5 that are against high density. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from any alderman? All right. Madam Clerk, would you, I'm seeing a screen right now. I'm not seeing the alderman, but there we go. Larry, you're holding your hand up.
I'd just like to ask if Deborah would stay on the line as we have this further discussion.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll point out, Alderman Milton, that everyone that chooses to stay connected, I can bring back into the meeting at any time. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear at the quorum of the mayor, of course.
Thank you.
You have a question, Mr. or comment? Okay. Any discussion? All right. Do we have another speaker, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Gail Drummond. Her address is 186 Friendly Hills Drive, Branson, Missouri.
Ms. Drummond, can you hear us okay?
Now you should hear me.
Perfect.
Okay.
We'll begin now, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate what I'm hearing from my neighbors. My husband and I live at 186 Friendly Hills Drive. And we bought in this area for the very same reason, because we wanted this little pocket of green around us, not with any, not expecting the rest of the whole world to stay that way, but our little neighborhood and our homeowners association rules for the neighborhood and so forth made us think that we could live out the rest of our lives in this little area where it's so beautiful. And it's just heartbreaking to me to sit in my living room and to see while the leaves are down that every bit of the foliage is gone. I'm now where I was seeing nothing but green. I'm now seeing brown to black being just raked clean of any of the beauty that we all count on in this Branson area. We love the funny things that are at the Strip and we love all these other things, but we wanted one little quiet place where we could go and retire and spend the rest of our days. And I just wanted to go on record saying that it really breaks my heart to see that. Now, we have, as the other speakers have said, we've welcomed the view of the nice little sparkly lights over there on the hill across from us. That's lovely. But when you start going into the desperate move into 2 lots that are not needed for a project with so many. I mean, if you're putting, I know the first group was 40. I haven't seen another plan to know how many more units they're adding, but surely if there was going to be even reasonable people, reasonable neighbors, they don't have to go and try to chisel out 2 more. I think 80 is probably nice if the second unit has the same 40 as the first. But to take away all the green, people in the cities come to Branson so they can have a mixed bag. They can have all the fun shows and everything on 76, and they can go out into the green space. That's what they do to get away from some of the bigger cities. I just think it's not very forward thinking to take away all of the trees and everything that made it so beautiful. And I just felt like I had to say that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any aldermen have any questions or comments? Do we have another speaker?
Yes, we do. Wayne Drummond, 186 Friendly Hills Drive, Branson, Missouri.
Mr. Drummond, can you hear us okay still?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. I'll start your 3 minutes now, sir.
Okay, good. Good. Okay. Oh, I have talked to you several times already about our opposition to the high density residential. If before you vote, you will go and look at go to your phones and look up the global view of the neighborhood. You will see that the entire valley was once heavily treed, and what was on the other side, the eastern side of 121 was a good barrier to the multi-family housing and was served as a wonderful entry into our neighborhood. So please do not allow any more our neighborhood is being fragmented one owner at a time. Please do not allow any further intrusion of high density residential. The website is Google Earth. Just a simple Google Earth and look up Branson and find the site that we are discussing, and you will find enormous amount of foliage, all of which has been already destroyed. Please do not allow them to destroy any more. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Drummond.
You're welcome.
Any comments from any alderman? Okay. Any additional speakers, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have one more speaker, Sean Martinez, 271 Linhart Drive, Branson, Missouri.
Okay.
Mr. Martinez, can you hear us okay?
Yes, Chad, can you hear me?
We certainly can. I will start your 3-minute clock now and you can begin.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board, for allowing me to address Bill number 5962. I am the president. Deborah, who just spoke, is one of our trustees. And again, on Joel's map, it is wrong. Deborah has 3 lots, 18, 19, and 20. And I also have 3, 11, 12, and 13. So Joel's numbers are off once again. My job is to protect the covenants, just as the Board of Aldermen has 6 aldermen, and then the tiebreaker of the mayor's position. Well, so are we. You were asked for me to find to get the majority. Well, we have 12 and 12, and our tiebreaker is our covenants. And so, as my duty, I am supposed to protect our subdivision's covenants, which was come together in 1981, which was way before we had a lifestyle builder on the scene. From the beginning, I think this has been a waste of time. This reminds me of a story by the name of King David, who had his people were off to war, and he saw this woman out there taking a bath, which he should have been at war too, but he wasn't. He stayed home, and he saw this beautiful woman taking this bath. And so he called her up, had her brought to his room, had relations with her, and then tried to, make this, tried to relinquish himself, and wasn't able to. So he had to have this soldier killed because he was at war. And so his advisor, his prophet came in, Nathan, said, there's this one guy who, this rich guy, and he has all this, and he had this prominent friend come. And so instead of take one of his sheep, to dress for the best meal, he said, no, I'm going to take this poor man's sheep. And, this guy loved this sheep, had him at his tables, in his bed, even brushed his teeth every day. And David got so mad and said, this guy must die. Well, Nathan turned around and said, you are that man. We're not dealing with 2 lots. We're dealing with one particularly of this vacant lot that has caused so much headache and hassle. And the builder knew what was going on before. Alderman, I come before you, as we've talked many of things. Your decision tonight is irreversible if this passes. If this passes, we live with this decision, not you. Not the builder. The builder doesn't even live here, but we live here. Just yesterday, again, we saw another fire department come. How many more will we have come? We've had theft in our subdivision. This will not stop, even though this is passed, because there will be other lots that will come and again try to take apart our covenants.
Mayor, 3 minutes is elapsed.
And if I do get another moment to speak, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Is that the last speaker then, Madam Clerk?
That's all of our speakers.
Any alderman wish to call any speakers back? Mr. Milton.
I think, Sean, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yes, sir. I would greatly appreciate it. Oh, okay. I'm just going to be so bold, and just, can I speak? Am I available?
We still have limits on time, but yes, if you can be as brief as possible, would appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Completely. I will be very, very frank, very clear. This builder gambled and took apart this lot. I mean, maybe he had the understanding that the alderman would side with him this very night. I don't know, but that's very bold for him to do that before you guys tonight, thinking that you would side with him. Never once does this builder come and contacted us and tried to make any type of an agreement with us at all. I've said that since the beginning, and it still holds true today. it's like again, I will be bold. This like a spoiled, little child that if he doesn't, run to mom or run to dad, doesn't run to dad, run to mom, try to get the right answer. This is a serious decision for us. And yes, Alderman, I greatly appreciate your understanding as all of our owners here. Yes, we have an unclear situation with Davis's lots, but that should not be used as to weaponize this zoning situation here because of situations in the past. And it is unfortunate that that we do have somewhat of a division. And yes, some people have changed their minds, and I get, it is understanding why that their lots are up for sale, and the people that have changed their minds, their lots are up for sale, their homes are up for sale. And yes, this will not stop. This will not stop, whether it be tonight or the future. There will be other builders, and probably the same builder will come in and try to do the exact same thing on other lots. What I thought was going to be a simple, 6-0 decision that was made on October 27th of last year has turned into really grievous, yes, for us, but also for you guys have to hear us again and again. And unfortunately, I don't see how this could possibly stop. I plead with you guys tonight that you do not allow this bill to pass. Bill 5962 would be shot down dead in its tracks to not allow this luxury lake view large lots subdivision to be decimated, to be desecrated, to be destroyed, as it is one of the very last subdivisions in Branson city limits, which was one of the requests by my daughter when we moved here. She wanted to be in Branson public schools. I have a baby here. I have a 2-year-old baby that me and my wife had here 2 years ago. Want her to grow up here, but having all this, our future is in jeopardy with the turn of our subdivision and the neighbors wanting to probably do the exact same thing that Redford wants to do with our one lot, which would poke a hole into everything else that we have here. It should not be. Thank you, Alderman, for your time. Thank you, Mayor. Greatly appreciate it.
John, thank you. Mr. Skanes.
Just for the record, I've not spoken to the builder or developer, and neither have they reached out to me at all. I've been open-minded about this whole thing. Just want that on the record. I have not spoken to either one of these folks.
Any other have any comments they would like to make? Would anyone like some additional clarity from Joel? Yes, Larry Melton.
Yeah, actually, Mayor, I think I was going down the same road. Joel, if you would pull the map back up, both Deborah and Sean are saying that their count is 12 in favor and 12 opposed. Would you provide some color on that, please?
Just pulling the graphic back up here. So again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we utilize Taney County's information through a website called Beacon. That's their mapping website. We are not the record keepers of the county's information. So we utilize Beacon as a source to help us with our work. So these property lines that are outlined on this graphic are taken directly from Beacon. So for instance, lots that are labeled with the 6 and 7 in the northeast corner of Friendly Hills are the ones owned by Miss Johnston. And again, per Beacon's records, Taney County's records that are shown on Beacon, it only shows 2 lots. Similar with Mr. Martinez lots, which are labeled as 1 and 2, Beacon only shows those as being 2 lots.
Okay, and I understand that's Beacon and that's a source. I'm just struggling that the president of the association and the treasurer of the association are saying that their count is 12 to 12.
Yeah, the only point I would make to that is we show 22 total properties. So if they're saying there's 24 total properties, that does not change the 15 that are not opposed. That would only increase those that are opposed from 7 to 9. So we would still have 15 properties not opposed and 9 opposed. It wouldn't reduce the number of those that are not opposed.
Okay, if you would humor me, Joel, I know you're using the term individuals who are not opposed.
Correct.
I think if we ask the question, how many are not in favor of, I believe that would be a different answer, wouldn't it? If we said how many are not in favor of this.
I'm simply going off of the information that was provided to us, the signed letters that were provided in the staff report under Exhibit 3. Those letters all state that they are not opposed to this request. And that is the terminology that we have utilized throughout. If those individuals were to say it a different way, we would rather it came from their mouth than from staff's.
Okay, well, I know we have a letter from Tim Davis.
We do.
And in that letter, I believe it says he is neither for it or opposed.
So Tim Davis happens to be the first letter we provided. And in his second paragraph, it states, I am not opposing the application to rezone lots 1 and 2.
Does he say he's not in favor?
It says, I am not opposing the application. He goes on in his letter to write how he does not represent Friendly Hills Property Owners Association. He doesn't represent any of the people who live in Friendly Hills subdivision. He's just represent himself. It does go on to say, nothing in my letter should be construed as consent or agreement on behalf of any of the Friendly Hills residents. But he's not saying that on his behalf. I think he's just, again, when I read this, I take that as this is Tim Davis's opinion and no one else in Friendly Hills. And his opinion is he's not opposed to this application.
Okay, when he addressed the board at our last Alderman meeting, I thought he was very clear where he said he is not opposed to it and he's not in favor of it.
We were also very confused by Mr. Davis's comments at the last meeting. So we reached out to him by phone and we made the comment to him that if he wished to change his stance from what is published in the staff report from his letter, that he is not opposing the application, that he would have that opportunity to do so. And we did not receive anything from Mr. Davis to change the letter that he submitted on December 31st.
Okay. Tonight we heard from 4 homeowners that live out there. If I put myself in their shoes and I purchased out at Friendly Hills and I wanted these large lots, and that's the reason I purchased and chose to build my home there. Boy, I would have similar feelings that they do. If the president, and I know we're comparing what the president and the treasurer are saying compared to what the Beacon records show, but if the president and the treasurer are saying that according to their count, it's 12 to 12, then this board is being asked to approve this zoning. My opinion is I would be more than willing to approve the zoning if the majority of the homeowners were in agreement. The fact that according to the president and the treasurer, if it's a split vote 12 to 12, then the majority are not in favor of approving this high density residential zoning.
We may not get those that spoke this evening to admit it, but again, I just would point out that by adding 2 lots to the total that are opposed, that doesn't change the 15 that are not opposed. So it would still only be 15 to 9, which
Yeah, I agree, but that's based on what Beacon records show, right?
Beacon represents 15 to 7. If you all consider what the Friendly Hills folks that are speaking tonight have stated, that would only increase those that are opposed to 9. So it'd be 15 to 9. It would
Okay.
not be 12 to 12.
I understand what you're saying. It's just I'm struggling with what the Beacon records are showing compared to what the president and the treasurer of the homeowners association are saying.
I would be very interested to know how they're getting 12 to 12, because I can't get there.
Okay, I'll reserve my comment.
Any other?
Bill, I don't think he can see you raise your hand.
Nope, need to get back to the Board of Aldermen.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, yes, speak up. That's great. Thank you.
Oh, boy, I wish I had that map still up, Joel. Sorry. Are we talking about lots 1 and 2?
I will pull it back up.
I've been going, as Sean asked, to go to Google Earth and looking down on that. And I'm trying to compare again from what I've seen versus the map versus what I'm seeing on Google Earth. Thank you for bringing that back up.
You're welcome.
So are the lots we're talking about tonight 1 and 2?
So I believe the confusion may be coming from the ones that are labeled as 1 and 2 on the red, that Mr. Martinez is stating he has a third lot. And then Miss Johnston, which is lots 6 and 7. Again, these aren't the lot numbers, it's just a count to help differentiate. But so the 6 and 7 with the red in the northeast corner, the upper right corner, again, she's saying that she has 3 lots, not 2.
So the lots that we're talking about in question tonight that the developer wants to develop on your map, how do you denote those?
That would be 5 and 6 of the green lots on the eastern edge.
I'm way away from that now.
We're getting back noise from somewhere.
That may be my granddaughter watching TV. Sorry about that, Ed. I'm familiar with it now. Thank you.
Mayor, I have another question.
Mr. Milton?
I was contacted by a realtor who said that Steve Redford has 4 of these lots under contract. Are you familiar with that, Joel?
I guess clarification, just which lots?
I was told Steve Redford has 4 lots that are under contract, and the contingency, there was a contingency where those 4 lots had to agree to this zoning for Steve Redford to purchase them. And Steve Redford has, I believe he said 90 days to close escrow. And he was just wanting me to be aware that if Mr. Redford had put these under contract, to get these homeowners to agree to change the zoning so they could sell their properties. He asked the question, what happens if they have those agreements now to get this approved and then Steve Redford doesn't end up purchasing those properties?
I guess not being a party to those contracts, I'm not aware of the specifics or anything like that about what you just mentioned, unfortunately.
So you haven't heard anything about Steve having 4 of those under contract?
No, I mean, and you know, to be able to sell property, the condo process needs to be taken on to legally divide property and then sell it. And they have not initiated that process with the city for anything we're talking about tonight within those 2 properties.
Okay, well, I'm going to vote no, and it's primarily because I put more faith in the president and the treasurer saying that the vote is 12 to 12 that I'm going to put on the records of Beacon. That's all I have, Mayor.
Any other comments from any alderman?
Mayor.
Yes.
So
Yes,
I think Mr. Martinez cleared this up because the two previous speakers were talking about clearing trees and building structures on 2 lots. The one lot in question is the old McCooch house. So there is a structure there already, and there's not any trees that would be removed on that lot. So it really comes back. And Joel, if you could bring up the actual site plan that shows the 30 condos that are already there and built leading up to the Kirby property. And well, you know, if he's getting that up, and I think they stated that the developer hadn't approached any of them, but I recall that there was a tree buffer, you know, that they were going to supply that, and they were talking about helping the HOA out with some funding to do some things, road work in there, and they were making all kinds of concessions. So I'm not really sure how those homeowners weren't privy to that. But as you can see on that map there, the trees there are the tree buffer that they were talking about. So not arguing or disputing what Mrs. Kirby said, but there are no more trees that are going to come down. Those trees, you know, disappeared a year ago when they did this first part of this loop here. So in all reality, they're not taking trees down, they're actually adding trees, which was part of the deal. And we discussed about this last time when the developer was online. So, you know, because of her view, they're trying to, you know, placate that, replacing that. So those are the only things I wanted to clarify, that the one lot not number 1 already has structures on it. Trees have been removed. The other one, those trees have been removed, which affected the Kirby residents. And that's where they were going to come back and put that tree line represented on that map there. So, and, you know, I know a lot of them mentioned future, you know, it's, you know, there's other people that have desires to build up there. And it's going to come back one way or another. I think they're feeling that if they're able to stop this right now, that it's going to discourage other people coming back to want to do HDR. And I don't know that that's going to, you know, to achieve what their goal is to do that. So, I mean, the project's already there. And sure, it would give them a little bit more buffer, the Kirby's there, to look at the last condo that's already built instead of the 4 that would sort of encroach on their property. I mean, you can't argue that, but so I just wanted to clarify that the 2 different lots and the thing about the trees coming back. And I did hear that the developer had approached several of them discussing the whole project like this.
Okay. Any other comments from any other? Mr. Milton?
I just wanted to ditto what Bill Skane said. The developer has not reached out to me at all. Sean says he hasn't reached out to him as the president of the association. So I just wanted to make a note of that.
Any other comments?
Mayor, I'd like to make one.
Mr. Simmons?
This is something that I think we need to think of as a city, because from the pictures that we were shown 2 weeks ago when we had this before us, there's been considerable blasting and tree removal on one of those lots. And I think that's probably what the lady that lives next door to that is referring to. And that was done prior to us making any zoning change that would allow that. And the way I understand it, a developer can do that at his own risk. Well, when you change the topography and take out the trees, that's irreparable. You can't go back to what it was before. So if it doesn't pass, then you're still left with what the people objected to. We need to rethink our situation on that and not let that happen in other areas. And my concern here is that that whole hillside on some of those green lots up there, the big ones that sit around the hillside, that could all be blasted and leveled and stair stepped and put the same type of thing that's on here on all of those lots. And so this whole subdivision could disappear. Now, the way the city, in my opinion, should handle that is they should not take any more of that into the city limits. That wouldn't be the city's fight. It's already been zoned by the county or whatever the county is. It's in there, the county's approved. And certainly that should be a fight that's done at that level, not at the city level. Since we have taken these into effect, then we have the problem here. I'm going to vote against this for two reasons. One is that they have proceeded to go right ahead with it without the approval. And apparently several weeks before, they're far enough along that they've already cleared, they've already blasted, they've already put foundations in. So this didn't just all happen yesterday or since 2 weeks ago. We saw it all in pictures 2 weeks ago. So it's happened a month or more ago, probably. So I'm sure these people do have a legal recourse with their covenants that they could sue the developer. But that's again, not our concern. We don't enforce those. But this is something in our 2030 plan that we wanted to protect, were these hillsides, because you could do that on any hillside and it changes the whole character of the whole area. And I'm going to vote no for the third or fourth time on this. Thank you.
Julia?
Yes, Your Honor. I just want to pause for a minute and express that our Planning and Zoning Committee, in my opinion, has always done a wonderful job. I think that Joel has always provided really good information that's made me able to vote with clarity in the past. I empathize with Friendly Hills, and I struggle right now with the inconsistency of information provided by the neighborhood HOA, provided by Beacon. I think there needs to be a little more collaboration between the developer and some additional parties in the neighborhood. So for those reasons, I'm going to vote against this tonight, but that is not a reflection on the work that the individuals on our Planning and Zoning Committee have done.
Okay. Would it help that there would be an explanation of Beacon and how the county bases their tax structure?
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Simmons.
I own lots, half a lot on one side of my house and a lot on the other side of my house. And over the last few years, the county and Beacon have decided that those are all one lot. So where I purchased about 3 lots where my house sits and one lot on half a lot on the other side, that used to be 5 different properties. And now it's one on Beacon. So I can see how that could have possibly happened to these people that own 3 lots, how they might have been combined into 2. I don't know that, but I know that it does happen for my own property.
Mayor, I would point out that Mr. Martinez has had his hand raised for a while. I'd leave it up to you on how you want to address that, but I'm just passing on information.
2 minutes.
Yes, sir. I'll bring him into the meeting. Mr. Martinez, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, our legal documentation should supersede any Beacon documentation. And our legal documentation clearly shows, as well as our subdivision, when it was created and the lots. I'm not familiar with Beacon outside of this meeting. I'm not aware of it. Don't have no need to look at Beacon. As far as I'm concerned, there is no legal value there. Thank you. That's the only comment I have at this point. Thank you very much for just letting me clarify. There are 24 lots and not 22, for what beacon is or who or what beacon is. I do not know that, but my legal documentation should supersede all of that, of whatever another third party says. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
Your Honor, would it be appropriate if I'd like to call for question?
Sure. There's been a call for the question. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right. Motion's been called for to come to a vote. At this point in time, I would ask Madam Clerk to please provide a roll call.
Just for clarification, this is a roll call on the motion to call for questions. King?
Okay.
Approve.
Whitus?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Gaines?
Yes.
Milton?
Yes.
C?
Yes.
Your Honor, that passes 6-0.
Okay. Now, Madam Clerk, would you please do a roll call for the vote on the original motion?
This is the vote on the final reading of Bill number 5962. King?
No.
Whitus?
No.
Simmons?
No.
Gaines?
Yes.
Milton?
No.
C?
Yes.
The vote is 2-4 and it fails.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this point, I'm ready to move on to other business. Item number 6, please, from the consent agenda.
Your Honor, this is the final reading of Bill number 5964, an ordinance amending Chapter 94 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to nightly rentals.
Okay. You've heard the final reading of Bill number 5964. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
I'm sorry? So moved? Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We have a speaker tonight on this particular bill. Madam Clerk, would you introduce tonight's speaker?
We have 2 speakers on this item. Our first speaker is Jody Medeiros, address 215 Tyler Street, Branson, Missouri.
Good evening. Can you hear me, everyone? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can. I think as Alderman Chad, you can hear him, right?
I can hear, and you have 3 minutes, and I'll start your time right now.
Mayor Akers, Board of Aldermen, good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak again regarding this issue. This is Jody Medeiros, and I'm the homeowner at 215 Tyler Street. And tonight I am once again representing all the homeowners of the Tyler Street Neighborhood Watch. And I just wanted to reiterate to the alderman how serious this matter is to Tyler Street. You know, the bottom line, I've been thinking about how to phrase this. The bottom line we've been dealing with is that these nightly rentals bring strangers. They have brought strangers to our street, and that is key, strangers. And I know, as I mentioned at the last meeting, my wife Valerie and I and several of the homeowners over the last 2 years have really endured some tough episodes that shook us to the core and made us feel very unsafe. Illegal drug use, the underage drinking, trespassing, harassment, disturbing the peace, all tied to those nightly rentals. And I've got to tell you, I had my fill of this kind of behavior when I lived in New York City for 28 years. You know, Tyler Street and this whole Hideaway Hills area is made up of young families and retirees and professional folks. We've got children that play in their yards out front and on the street. It's a wonderful neighborhood. I am so happy to live here. That's why I bought a home here. And so all I can tell you is this street just is not the place for nightly rentals. And I hope you'll take my word for that. We value our safety and the children's safety most of all. And so I just want to thank you for voting yes on this adjustment to the ordinance. And thank you for all you do for Branson.
Thank you, Mr. Medeiros. Any alderman have any questions for Mr. Medeiros? Okay, Madam Clerk, any other speakers?
Yes, our next speaker is Evelyn Clark, 220 Tyler Street, Branson, Missouri.
Evelyn, can you hear us okay? I believe you're muted, Ms. Clark.
Thank you. Yes, I am Evelyn Clark. I live at 220 Tyler Street here in Branson. And last July the 4th, there was a disturbance that happened to me with the nightly renters next door. A family was disturbing the peace with loud fireworks and walked into my lawn trespassing and were very aggressive with me. Verbally said some very harassing things and made me feel very uncomfortable. They were strangers to the area. A couple of weeks later, another nightly rental with a large camper, boat trailers, parked directly in front of my driveway. As I had family coming to spend the weekend with me, I asked them to move their vehicles into the area where they had rented. The gentleman who was renting said he would, however, they chose not to. I then tried to talk to them again one more time. They got very belligerent with me, using profanity. It was quite awful. And I just feel that, you know, if we can have voting yes for this adjustment on this ordinance, I would be very, very thankful. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Any other speakers, Madam Clerk?
That's all of our speakers.
Okay. Any alderman wish any comments? Mr. Skanes.
It's just a comment there that Bob and I have been working with the police department and the people in that area about having to deal with those issues, because our subdivision just abuts up right to their subdivision. And I understand where they're coming from. I just want to thank them for the patience that they've shown, because we started this, Bob, what was it, 6-7 months ago, process. Yeah. And it is a process. It's just what it is to get something done. I'm just sorry it's taken this long. I thank them for working with us and inviting us into the home in the Branson Police Department to tell us about those things, because if somebody doesn't bring it to our attention, we don't know about it. I just appreciate that. And I will be voting for this particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skanes. Any other alderman have any comments?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So, Joel, clarify for me that passing of this, what we have before us tonight, is that going to prohibit them from doing this on this particular street again?
So it will prohibit future new nightly rentals from being allowed on this street. I believe there is one that does have a license within the city limits to do nightly rentals, so they would be allowed to continue that operation. Now, if that homeowner were to sell or to let their license lapse more than 1 year, then they would not be able to get a new license to do the same.
Gotcha. So this is a combination of, well, I call it teachable moment, or, you know, a lesson learned type of thing. And I think that's how a lot of ordinances get amended or created.
Okay. Mr. Milton?
Joel, you mentioned that they have a license for this business. Are there any restrictions on the license as far as being good neighbors, not violating the laws?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We have many codes and ordinances that come into play. You know, there's the noise ordinance, there's the disturbing the peace ordinance, all of those that are enforced by our police department and code enforcement. And so at any point, absolutely, if anybody's in violation of those rules and regulations, you know, please, they need to contact code enforcement or the police, and, you know, we'll be able to enforce and, you know, do what's necessary. And, you know, obviously if it gets to the level of requiring citations, the police is well aware of that process and how to go down that road.
So is Jody and Evelyn, I don't know if they've called the police. I don't know if that's been a resource for them to try to eliminate these problems that they're having, because regardless of how we vote tonight, it sounds like those that are there conducting that type of activity is not going to change.
Yeah, I mean, they've spoke very highly of the police department in the past, and I know Jeff and his staff. I know Jeff personally was out there, the chief, talking with neighbors early on in this process and trying to work together as a neighborhood, as a community to solve these issues. And again, this is one of the things we can do to help make this situation better for the residents on Tyler Street. And we're definitely looking at other opportunities as well.
And this is strictly for Tyler Street, not for Hideaway Hills.
This code is for the entire community. It just so happens that the residents of Hideaway Hills were the ones that really have championed this, along with Alderman Skanes and Simmons, to bring it to our attention. And we found an opportunity to kind of tighten the screw on nightly rentals a little bit, if you will. And, you know, like I said, there's some more work we need to do as well.
Okay. Thank you, Joel.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
I'd like to thank Joel and his department on this, because this has not been as simple as it sounds. And I believe in one of these, there were actually two of them operating here. One of them was licensed, the other one was not. So it will be eliminated by this. The one that's licensed will be able to continue within the rules. And Joel is also working on other things. What made it so difficult is it encompasses the entire city. And therefore, you've got to be careful that you don't have unintended consequences in areas that are designed for this type of thing. And so they've worked a great deal, and it has taken time, and it's because it's so complicated. And there's more that they hope to be able to do and bring to us later that will help solve these situations without damaging places where this is actually designed for this type of thing, and that the people around them were aware of it when they moved there, and then they have permission to have it, so that they come about in the right manner. So like I said, Joel and his department have done countless hours of work trying to get this done without having it come back on us for something we didn't foresee. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Bob. Just a comment, Bill and Bob, you've done exactly what you're supposed to do for your ward. Is you found an issue and you've gone to bat for them, and I appreciate the fact that Ward 1 has been looked after, and thank you for doing that. Any other comments? All right. Are we ready to vote? Madam Clerk, please call for the roll call vote.
King,
Approved.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, it passes 6-0.
Thank you. At this point in time, we're to the item number 10, which is a presentation of the Branson Convention Center for the year 2020 year-end review. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction?
Your Honor, this is the presentation of the Branson Convention Center fiscal year 2020 year-end review.
Staff report begin with Jamie Roush.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I'm just going to introduce Sam. He's here tonight to go over the presentation for the 2020 year-end review for the Convention Center. Sam, go ahead.
Welcome, Sam.
Thank you very much, and good evening. I'm going to share my screen very quickly. Chad, are we up?
You're good. Yeah,
very good. Thank you so much. I'm going to give a brief recap of the 2020 year from heck, as we say. Although we'd like to put it behind us, I do want to give you a brief recap. So let me get to the next slide. There we go. This is a timeline and graphical representation of each quarter of 2020. And I wanted to review this because it just lays out a nice picture of how this progressed and where we are today. So first quarter, if we can just go back in time, first quarter, January, February, March of 2020, at the beginning of January, COVID-19 was not yet classified officially as a pandemic in the US. There were cases in Europe, of course, China and other places, but it was not yet classified as a pandemic, as well as there certainly had cases in the US, but not to the level that it contributed to eventually. At that time, wanted to note that the Branson Convention Center was on track to beat the first quarter budget expectations. We were having a great year here. Of course, it was before my time. So to speak on the financials, 2019 was the best year, I believe, ever. So coming off of 2019 into first quarter of 20, we were doing fairly well. And you could see the expenses there versus budget was down considerably. And then the bottom line, we were right around 17,300 better than budget expectations in first quarter. And then April hits, and April was the big month where cancellations occurred. The building actually shut down. All cancellations were 100%. There were no events in April, and that is the height of COVID in our industry, if you will, and especially in this market. It became very prevalent that we were one of the few centers still operating, or planned to operate, should I say, but all the April events canceled. That left a big financial burden in the second quarter of 2020. And since there are no revenues at that point, we did mitigation very quickly. So immediately we went into action to reduce expenses to try and compensate for the reduced revenues. And what we ended up doing, unfortunately, is like most businesses had to do and adjust during this unprecedented time, was that we had layoffs, furloughs, and significant salary reductions that affected 76 team members here. We ended up with a 57% full-time staff reduction. That left us with exactly 3 people, full-time people running this building and keeping it, should I say, on life support just for the month of April. And the rest of the year, we were looking at 58 remaining events canceled at that time. Now, some did reschedule into the next year, 21, this year. However, the majority did cancel. Then the mask ordinance went into effect in the third quarter of 2020. That is about whenever I started my tenure here, and of course started to love Branson. And the problem, although that COVID really hit our bottom line there, and we were about $500,000 off of budget due to all of the cancellations. At that time, we had a permanent restructuring of staff here to once again mitigate the expense to offset because of the revenue offset. And we continued the furloughs and additional layoffs. Then a vaccine was announced right at the beginning of fourth quarter. And that did give hope to a lot of meeting planners and attendees as well. However, there was no firm date on when that would take effect. And a lot of events still attempted to cancel, as well as was very cautious about meeting in mass groups at that time. We were able to utilize the marketing fund, which was great, to inform people that, hey, we are still open, and to actively also utilize that marketing fund to incentivize and retain events so that we wouldn't have further cancellations. And so we ended the year a little above 1.4. There's actually about $30,000 or $40,000 above that needs to be put into there that we found just recently. So we're right at about 1.5 or so, just to let you know, which was about $552,000 variant over the budget that we had submitted back in 2019. I believe it was right around September, October. So you can see in a graphical representation, we have cancellations, we have revenue impact, and we have mitigation and leadership change. The next slide here, although the budget was not looking very satisfactory for the end of the year, we managed to still have a massive amount of economic impact to the market, and specifically to the city of Branson. As we all know, the convention center was not built with the intention of making money on its own financial ledgers. It was intended to make money for everyone else as bait, if you will, to bring conventions and visitors in so that they spend their money in restaurants, attractions, etc. So that economic impact was calculated by the Chamber of Commerce here, the Tourism Bureau, Jason Outman's team, and they did a wonderful job analyzing each event that came here and we hosted in 2020. And those were analyzed to a point where we realized about a $50 million economic impact, gross economic impact, versus the deficit, or I call it investment, to gain that. So your net investment, if you will, is right around 49 million. So the operation, while there is a deficit at the end, like most all convention centers do have, there is a significant return to that investment on the lines of serious stock of 3,326% return on your investment, which is a 33 times multiple on a normal business investment, if you will. And you can see on the right side here, estimated room nights booked in the market was about 105,000 nights due to the events in 2020. And I must say that we had cancellations as well. So this number would have been a lot larger if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Excuse me, Sam.
Yes, sir.
Would you go back to the previous screen? Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted the viewers to understand that when you say economic impact, almost $51 million economic impact, that is revenues that have been received from our businesses in Branson, our lodging, our shopping, our theaters, our restaurants. That's the amount of money that was spent by consumers in our market.
That is the effect of that money that was spent, Alderman Milton. And so there is a mixture of definitions, and that definition would be that there's direct tax impact. If you spend $10 and there's a 10% tax, obviously, you know, that is, and then what is the effect of that spend? So a good example is, you know, we should never count the local spend. It is all the new money, we call it. And then that is actualized in a direct tax impact and an indirect tax impact as well. So the overall impact is almost $51 million because of the employment that is given due to that spend. If that spend was not there, then that employment may not be there. So it is an all-encompassing calculation, if you will. But yes, the overall impact is almost 51 million for 2020.
Thank you, Sam. Go on.
Okay. Actual versus budget. We just went over a little bit of that, but I want to give you a little recap of, at the end of the year, we realized 93 less event days in 2020. And while in second quarter, we realized that we were going to cancel a little over 50 events, it ended up being 93 event days that were affected, which equals to 63 events. And let me just say that an event day does consist of the show day, a move in and a move out, because the building cannot be used when the event is in. So that is counted as an event day. But the number of events were impacted at 63. Now, if we were to equate that, which we did, to a revenue loss, we were almost $2 million down last year due to COVID-19. That is unprecedented. So you can see the rest of these numbers we just went over, that we did reduce expenses quite dramatically. And I have a chart here that is the next slide that tells the tale as well. And so here is the 2020 actual versus what was budgeted versus what was happening in 2019. So in 2019, that was one of the best years here. And the convention center managed to actually turn a profit of 121,000 and some change, which was very interesting because most do not. So best year ever. And if you look back at the tourism numbers, there were some of the best as well. 2020 hit, of course, and then the bottom fell out for the meetings industry. And here we are today with what we budgeted versus what the actual is, but still realizing that economic impact. I mentioned that we mitigated expenses. And anytime that the revenue is significantly decreased, any business has to decrease their expenses as well to try to compensate. And we did that. You can see the net salaries and benefits were reduced, budgeted versus the actual there quite substantially. So going on down the line there, you know, we're talking about even utilities being down, even though events were down and contributed to some of that. We really skinned back on utilities, suffering a little bit in the wintertime and sweating a little bit in the, of course, the summertime, just to try to compensate. So total expenses mitigated. I mean, we're talking about over $1 million of expenses cut to try to assist. And the staff did an incredible job here with great teamwork. And you may have seen this prior to one of my presentations, but this is a great representation of what's going on with our competitive set and in the region about how they are impacted with COVID-19 and the pandemic. So you can see that the Branson Convention Center, we had about 93 event days that we lost. But if you look at the Shreveport Convention Center in North Louisiana, as an example, they had 379 and they only had 75 events. So, you know, that is a huge reduction in business. 148 in Evansville, Indiana loss. And you can see almost 300 loss at the Century Center in South Bend, Indiana. So, you know, there's a lot out there, even more than this, that are a lot more impacted negatively than the Branson market has been. So actually Branson fared very well in the meetings and conventions industry in 2020 compared to most that were not. So here's just a quick review of some of the customer service scores. So even in a reduced expense, reduced staffing levels, we did manage to get a 95 percentile or better in most all of these categories. Of course, what I like to see and point out is that the last bullet point, prior to hosting an event, what was your thought process on what customer service would be at the center? Most said 87%. But after their event, they realized that it was 95%. So their expectation was met and exceeded from before they came in. So versus after, which I really like to see. And at the bottom, one of our largest events that we had was the Crappie Expo, and Wally Marshall, the CEO and owner of that, he put that on and he had an incredible time in Branson. He's coming back in 22, thankfully. But he provided a quote for us that he really wanted you to see. And that is that the VIP banquet was the most amazing dinner and service that he's ever had at an event. Quality of food was awesome. And everyone talked about the service quality for days after the event. Now, if you know Wally Marshall, he has said a lot more than that, but I wanted to keep this presentation short. So, you know, that is good news that our customer service scores were great. So here's some of the initiatives that we had in 2020 whenever I got here, July 28th, and then some that I want to touch on for next year, or should I say this year. And that is that I want to reiterate that we have 9 less full-time staff here, and we'll probably end up operating that way for a while. We are not backfilling open positions at this time. There's still caution in the air, if you will, with meeting planners and events. We have instituted an audit for our utilities controls, which we did reclassify the building for a better kilowatt per hour rate, which will be about a $20,000 savings. Incredible. We are negotiating and renegotiating vendor agreements. And of course, like everyone is, we're focusing on critical needs, not wants. So that's the expense side, but what about the revenue side? They have to go hand in hand. So what we've done is, of course, the Venue Shield program is the method of operation safely for events, from disinfection to everything else that is incorporated to have a safe meeting nowadays. That is giving client confidence. So if a client is on the fence about having their meeting, typically the Venue Shield program is looked at for a comfort level of safe meeting. Once again, I've mentioned that the marketing fund that we have here is going to be used a little differently than it has in the past. It's going to be used actively instead of passively. Passively meaning just placing an ad out there and hoping for the best doesn't work nowadays. We need to actively go out there, grab the business, because this is a trying time for our industry right now. We have to be in front of the meeting planners and make their decisions for them. And I know Jason's up next, so I'll try not to take a whole lot of his time, but I can tell you that we are working tremendously well together as a team. The Chamber and Tourism Bureau and the Hilton, we are working together, selling together, we're operating together, and we're most importantly communicating in real time in a triad approach. And this triad approach, I feel, is the only way to succeed for each of our entities. So that is a monthly meeting. We evaluate business. We have an agenda. We have a mission statement. It's an organization in my mind in itself that helps all succeed. Within that, we're going to contact 3,000 meeting planners in a sales blitz for 21. And what we're going to do is focus on lost business. How come you haven't come to Branson in a few years? We're going to focus on if you had a date issue, if we couldn't provide you a date, or if there's a revenue issue, let's talk about it. So there's always date conflicts. Sometimes you get out of rotation on these large conventions, but the end of the day, the point is to get out in front of 3,000 people and then book more business for all of us. Another new initiative that you may have heard of, and that is sponsorship and advertising opportunities within the venue. Not that we're going to commercialize the venue at all, because it is a convention and meetings venue. However, we have a captive audience of thousands of people here that others can take advantage of. We just signed a deal with Fritz's Adventures as an example. They will become one of our partners. We have 2 more partners that are coming on, hopefully in the next 30 days. And a good example is the archery tournament that's coming in 2 weeks. We have about 10,000 people coming into Branson at this building just for that. And it's a huge economic impact driver. So our partners are going to be able to take advantage of that, and we will drive traffic out into the community and make sure that they're spending their money out in the community. And we'll do so via the partnership program. That's all I had for now. Be willing to certainly answer any questions if you have them.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr.
Sam, thank you for that. It's really trying times. I have about 3 or 4 questions and a couple statements. We normally went to the National Governors Association meeting, Washington, D.C. Council, National Association of Workforce Development Professionals, Council, National Association of Counties, Council, National League of Cities, Council. The point I want to try to make is Branson's not in this little world on its own, that the coronavirus is only happening in Branson. This is a nationwide deal. What is your feeling about nationwide conferences? And is Branson as attractive to others? And are we properly positioned now for growth?
Well, and I thank you for that, Alderman Skanes. That statement in question is appropriate because that is what we're seeing as well. I can tell you that even though the organization may be elsewhere, they may be in St. Louis, at Kansas City, they could be in Chicago, looking to come to Branson. The core issue is that the pandemic is a national issue, like you mentioned, and that they will cancel or not come, not because of Branson, but because of their origination point having issues. So A good example would be the American Cornhole Association meeting out of Los Angeles coming into Branson had to be rescheduled to 21 from 20. And that had nothing to do with Branson and had everything to do with somewhere else. So even though we don't have necessarily capacity restrictions in Missouri, it is about the national scale of what's happening out there. Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments from Alderman?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I just had those two things. Is Branson as attractive as the others? And are we properly positioned to take advantage, Sam, of these other facilities like Shreveport and in your area, the sphere that y'all work with? How well are we positioned to do something there?
Well, we're very well positioned because we stayed open. If the board decided that this building was going to be in hibernation, then I would tell you something much different. The fact that we remained open throughout this, albeit with reduced revenue, however, there are buildings out there that are in a restart mode that have to start as they were grand opening again. So the fact that we can steal business, if you will, from St. Louis or Kansas City because we are open and we're operating safely here, that has occurred. In fact, in January, the Student Leadership Conference from Kansas City called STUMO had 650 students come in to Branson because Branson was open for business. And we actually had in January, which is a high need month here in this market. And so we realized a lot of economic impact that probably wouldn't occurred if this pandemic wasn't there. So that is a plus. It just points to the fact of your question. We do take from other markets where we see that we can. And yes, we are positioned better in Branson than most.
Any other questions? Take a chance just to Sam to say, I'm really pleased with the synergy that I see taking place between you and the chamber and the Hilton staff. But I'd be remiss if I wouldn't mention our city administration has worked hard to make sure that the communication process is there and that we're all involved and understand what's going on. And thank you for your approach to being open and transparent in this whole situation. And I'm looking forward to relationships with Jason where he can do the same thing, that we as a community can really work together and grow to the future. And thank you for your help.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. All righty. Next report, item number 11. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction?
Your Honor, this is the presentation of the Branson Chamber of Commerce and Convention and Visitors Bureau year-end 2020 marketing report.
All right, sorry about that. I still had it on mute. Mr. Mayor, Alderman, thank you for taking the time to hear us tonight. I'm going to be brief because Rachel's going to give our full report for you. I did want to, Alderman Skanes, I did want to throw in just a quick comment. Sam and his team, tremendous relationship. One thing I do want to point out when we're talking about positioning, we are in a great position to capture that business that you mentioned. One of the challenges that we do face when you talk about like a Shreveport, a Kansas City, or a St. Louis, their convention centers are actually significantly bigger than ours. So we won't be able to capture, potentially all the lost business that they have, but we can definitely go after that business that will fit our center. But Shreveport, for instance, their exhibit hall is twice the size of ours. And then obviously Kansas City and St. Louis, that's just on a different level. But we are definitely targeting that business that will fit us, and we're in good position to go after it. So I just want to make a quick comment on that. A couple quick things. Obviously, I wasn't here in 2020, but the chance that I've had to review the staff here at the Chamber and the CVB, let me just say, we have a tremendous staff. And what I was able to read and to see what they were able to accomplish through 2020, through this pandemic, I applaud them. This was a very difficult time, obviously, and we're still going through it. But the Chamber and the CVB staff did an outstanding job of really trying to continue to drive and market Branson the way that it needed to be done. Branson really has performed better than most cities. The city that I came from, in fact, Columbia, South Carolina, we were looking at visitation being down between 40-45%. Branson, we're projecting our visitation is going to be down about 30% in 2020, and that's coming off of 2019, which was one of the biggest years we've ever had in Branson. So that's actually a big compliment, not only to the Chamber CV staff, obviously, but to all those involved in the city to really make this a welcoming place to all of these events. As I'm looking through some of the tax collections, actually some of our tax collections were only down 8%, which is, again, another tremendous saying. I just received, I know this is TCED, not the tourism tax, but I just received the January report. The collections were up 9% over last year, so we're seeing a slight rebound there. But what Rachel, I think, is going to tell you today is that our visitor in 2020, they stayed longer and they spent more money. We spent more money per person and they spent more money as a party. And actually, if you compare it to the last 5 years, they spent more money than any time over the last 5 years, and they spent it in 2020. So we accomplished exactly what we wanted. We accomplished couples that came into market with a higher income, spent more money, and stayed here longer. So we have excitement for the future. And I just want to just a couple quick things why we're excited. I just read a report by Destination Analysts, travel sentiment report. And right now, the willingness to travel is at a pandemic high of 60.6%. So that's meaning that almost 61% of the people are saying they're beginning to have more willingness to travel throughout the United States. And right now, almost 38% of those people have begun planning a trip. So we're starting to see that, the business is picking up. One of the things that's going to put us in a great position is I know you guys already saw the Forbes ranking. They ranked us number 4 in the nation for a place to visit during the pandemic, to stay safe during the pandemic. And that is why we're seeing sentiment for us even higher than what you're seeing in other areas around the country, because they feel safe coming here and they're going to come here. They're going to stay longer, like I already pointed out. We are looking at recovering faster than others because we are a leisure destination, because we have so much outdoor entertainment, because our theaters have done a tremendous job of being able to promote a safe show environment for our visitors that are coming to see a show. Everybody has pitched in to make it safe. And so we're primed to have a much faster recovery than others. The other thing that we're going to see is sports is going to bounce back quicker. So not just with leisure, but our sports events. Sam mentioned cornhole. We also have, the things that will be taking place on the lake this year, the power boats and the jet ski. Those things are going to bounce back a lot quicker than meetings and conventions. But what we are starting to hear is that as the meetings and conventions are starting to gain more comfort level, we're still going to see a hybrid version. And so our organization is primed. In fact, we're getting ready to work with North Star Meetings, which is a big vendor in our industry, to help promote how we can help a meeting planner plan an event post-COVID, both from a hybrid and an in-person standpoint, so that they know how to be successful when planning a meeting. So we're real confident. We're excited. We've got a great plan in place. We've got the community partners like the MOC and the TCD, the convention center, our hotel partners that have helped us put a plan in place for 21. And we're real excited. So I'm going to let Rachel give you guys all the great things. I'm going to say great things because it was good in 20 compared to other cities. But Rachel, I'm sorry, Alderman Skanes, do you have a question?
Yeah, I think it's real important if you would address this. I did get information that Ballparks of America was basically going to be doubling their number of teams. Could you address that? I think that's real important for the community to understand the impact of that.
Yeah, we let me first say we are super excited with what the new ownership is doing at Ballparks of America. They've added the solar panels over there to help reduce costs. They've got the restaurant. They're even looking at adding a couple other things that will help entertain, some of the teams while they're there. They are seeing Scott Bales and his team. They're seeing a tremendous uptick in the baseball groups that are coming. As you mentioned, they're already starting to sell out, for the weeks throughout the summer. I mean, we're real excited with where that direction is headed. Sports is going to be huge for this market. And I think what we're going to see in the years to come that will benefit all of us is as we can start to, look in adding, and I'd have to ask them, but if they can add more fields, if we can, expand the Recplex, and get a couple more basketball courts onto the Recplex and some more soccer fields, Branson is primed to become a big youth sports mecca. But right now, Scott Bales and Ballpark of America, they're showing how it can be done, especially in this time that we're currently in.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, and I'm going to pass it over to Rachel now, Mayor.
Oh, Rachel will be a lot, she's actually a little better looking than you are, Jason.
She is.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay, sharing my screen here. Is it up? Can you see my screen?
We can.
Visitor profile? Yes.
Okay, and can you hear me okay?
Sound good to me.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jason, for that introduction. We're obviously very excited to have Jason on the team, and you can tell by the tone in his voice how excited he is to move forward in 2021. So that being said, we'll talk about 2020 and good evening, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. I'm Rachel Wood, Chief Marketing Officer for the Branson Lakes Area Chamber and CVB, 4100 Gretna Road, Branson. So tonight I'll be presenting the 2020 year-end marketing report. We'll be going over the key performance indicators, the behavioral profile. We'll look at travel planning and expectations. And finally, overall, we'll look at our U.S. travel performance predictions. So I'm going to skip past these key takeaways starting out because they're just a summary of what we're going to be going in detail in the body of the report. So looking first at the key performance indicators, obviously the pandemic had a major impact on Branson visitation in 2020. We are projecting approximately 6.3 million visitors compared to 2019 record-setting 9.1 million visits. Those final visitation numbers, final tax numbers are just coming in, so we'll have those finalized sometime this week. Since 2012, Branson has enjoyed a fairly steady increase in visitation until 2020. So we did see in 2017 a 2% dip, but then saw growth year over year after that, leading up to the decline driven by COVID-19. The good thing is when we look at our nationwide research, what they're indicating is the recovery is going to happen. It's not a matter of when, it's not if, it's when. So, I love that report that Jason just shared earlier that we just saw today showing, and that is real time. That was just issued today. So it's very current information. So seeing that people are getting out there, they're willing to travel, they're looking at traveling and booking a trip. That's, definitely what we like to see. So no surprise at all, our tax revenues took a hit in 2020. The tourism tax obviously was the hardest hit. When looking at area tax revenues, our 1% city sales tax was down 15.5%. Our tourism tax was down 35.2%. The TCD tax was down 20.8%. And then Stone County tax was down 8.9%, and Taney County tax was down 8.2%. So according to our Smith Travel research, our Branson's room demand decreased by nearly 43% in 2020, which was similar to what we saw in a lot of our competitive comp set. However, it really should be pointed out that room demand was also impacted by the fact that 41% of our visitors stayed in hotels in 2020, which was down from 51% in 2019. So we did see that people were staying in other types of accommodations, VRBOs, Airbnbs, timeshares, condos, those types of things. So looking at behavioral profile as the next set of research, when really looking at, we were surprised and happy to see this number, especially looking into 2021. So our core and primary market visitation increased this year, as we would expect due to the pandemic causing people to travel regionally and not so much beyond 300 miles. But it's really encouraging to us to see that 37% of our visits still came from beyond 300 miles. So that was down 7% from 2019, but actually I don't think that was down as significantly as much as what we had anticipated. So then when we look at our first time versus our repeat visitors, really, this was pretty flat as far as we didn't see a shift in new visitation versus repeat visitation. And I think, a lot of people felt comfortable knowing that Branson was going to keep them safe. But then on the other hand, we did, for those people that weren't traveling that normally come and see us, we did pick up some new first-time visitors. There was an increase, obviously, in our leisure market in 2020. We were up 4 points, and visitors are still taking more than 2.5 months to make their decision. So when you look at the days in advance that people decided to visit, in 2019, you can see we were at 86. So they were really booking a lot further out. And then you saw that window decrease to 78 days. And that's no surprise due to the fact that we really didn't know, how things were going to change from week to week during the pandemic. So personal auto, as we've always been a big personal auto as means of way to travel, that stayed very strong this year. Those who flew were most likely to use the Springfield Airport. However, Springfield saw a significant decline in their overall passengers, but then also just in two other airports in the region, competing airports. And so this next slide, we do really primarily more for our community partners. And I say that because we can't necessarily spend those intercept dollars in market. Obviously, we are trying to get the visitor to come to market. So this is really, when we look at media usage, this is really more for our partners to use in their own marketing to find out, are billboards working for them? Is it brochures? Is it the vacation guide? Is it they're advertising on the local radio station? And you can see like the big high points there are the vacation guide, the local coupon books, brochures, local magazines, those types of things. And live shows remains Branson's biggest functional driver visitation, with Silver Dollar City placing second and shopping third. So we're still seeing live shows as 58% of the people that are coming say that they're coming to see shows. So that means that that's a driver, a functional driver. It means that caused them to come. So 58% of those people said that they come for shows. 25% say they come for Silver Dollar City, and 23%, and I know Jamie will be happy to hear this, say they come for shopping. And then when we look at the number of shows that people have seen, you'll see in 2019 and 2020, we're still right at that average of 3 shows per trip. I think this next question is really interesting. We've been asking it now for 2 years. We added it because when we need to understand what the visitor considers a show. So do they consider, if they saw a fireworks show at the landing, do they consider that a show, for example? If they saw a street performer at Silver Dollar City, would that be considered a show? And so we divided that out, and you can see the respondents that said they saw shows, 78% of them said they saw them in a live theater, 49% said they saw a dinner show, and then you can see going down for there, 21% of those came for a special concert or celebrity show, and on down. And fewer than 1 in 5 of our visitors in the area were here on a timeshare visit. So you really don't see much difference in people that are here on a timeshare from the 2018 to 2020, even during the pandemic timeframe. But I think it's interesting to note that the people, if you dig deeper into the type of timeshare visit they were on, 31% said that they were encouraged before to come. 22% said that they were encouraged to do one while they were here, and 47% is that vast majority that are long-term timeshare owners in the area that decided to use their timeshare because they were available and they could. Overall, 86% of the Branson visitors that were surveyed said they stayed overnight on their trip. And we did see, like I said previously, that our hotel motel stays were down 51%, 41%, 51% in 19. And then you can see the timeshare increase, the condos increase, the campers, VRBOs, Airbnbs, and those types of things. Great news is that our per party trip spending was up to $1,063, where it had been $986 in 2019. So that was really exciting to see, considering most people who traveled in 2020 came from a little bit higher income household that weren't hit quite as hard by the pandemic. And our per person spending per party was $335, up from $303 in 2019. So something that we always focus on heavily and want to make sure that we're keeping our marks high on is our Branson Net Promoter Score. And it increased again in 2020 to reach 65%. And literally, this is such a high Net Promoter Score. When you look at other destinations, we should be very, very, very proud of this. And I think our Ozarks hospitality speaks to that, because 72% of the people that come here are promoters. They're going to tell their friends and family. They're going to come back. They're going to come back within a year. 21% this past year, they're neutral. They may not come back next year, but they like Branson. But, you know, they might want to go somewhere else next year and then come back to Branson the year after that. And then we only had 7% that just say it might not be their thing. It might be a while before they come back. So we're always trying to get everything there into the green. But to be at a 65%, that's the highest we've ever had in history. We were really excited when we got to 61, above 60 in 2018, and that just continues to increase. So really excited about that Net Promoter Score, because that says a lot about the ability to go get people in the future. And going right along with what I just said, the intent to return has been very flat at 89% of the people saying that they will return to Branson within 12 months, at same year over year from 2018 to 2020. And looking at our average visitor adult age, in 2018, we were at 58, and we dropped down to 55, dropped 3 years in 2019. And then we're seeing in 2020, 57. And when we really look at, I want you to pay particular attention to the families versus adults. And you'll see that the families were at 43%. And the adults were at 57%, where in 2019, you'll see those families were over those adults. And I think this is really, really shows what we have done to promote the shoulder seasons, to really go after and target very specifically that adult empty nester couple that has the ability and the income to travel in April and May and September and October. And so we really saw a shift in that. We had a lot more money to spend due to the CARES Act money that we received that we had to spend in September and October. We saw a lot of people in market in September and October. Those were those empty nester couples, and I really feel like that drove that average adult age, but then also drove those adults coming to Branson. And then our household income increased from 89.3 to 96.6. So very excited about that. And then I spoke earlier about the fact that we really didn't lose that much when it comes to the beyond 300 miles that I really feel like we could get back once the pandemic is completely past us. And then we do some questions for the Christmas Coalition just to evaluate the importance and satisfaction that people have in relation to the America's Christmas Tree City campaign. So as far as importance of America's Christmas Tree City and their decision to visit, 46% of those surveyed said that it was important, and 83% agree that the Branson experience delivered on that marketing position. So if you look over to the right, the awareness, 24% said they were aware, 88% said they either saw, visited, engaged in some sort of America's Christmas Tree City activity. 24% said it was important in their decision to visit. 13% said they wouldn't have visited without America's Christmas Tree City. And that gives us a derived impact of on that campaign of 5.1%. So when you look at derived impact, that's calculated based on the awareness, the participation, and the importance of the edition of the campaign. So looking on to the travel planning and expectations. So ironically, most travelers did not which I consider to be a really good thing. It shows their loyalty, the visitors' loyalty to Branson. But most visitors did not consider other destinations when considering Branson. Those that were considered were Pigeon Forge, Destin, and those types of destinations that are in our comp set. And as far as sources that they use to plan travel to Branson, we saw an increase in sources used to plan their trip being replacing some of those who had just relied on previous experience. So this could be due to the fact that the consumer was unsure what was available and open during the pandemic. So you can see that those loyal customers to Branson, 49% of them were basing it on previous experience. And then those others were checking out the websites of the local businesses that they normally go to. They were calling on the phone more than they ever have, asking about things being open, coming to the Explore Branson site, looking at the vacation guide and those types of things. So no surprise here. As far as technology used, for those people surveyed, 94% of those people owned a smartphone, 80% owned a PC, 76% had a social media account, and 66% owned a tablet. And when we look at social media specifically, Facebook is still one of our top uses, one of the top usages for our visitors, followed by YouTube, which grew some this year, Instagram, Pinterest, and Twitter. So similar to our trip planning, the information sources that visitors used this year were interesting to look at. When we looked at people that looked up information on a smartphone or tablet, that was at 43% said that they use that type of device. And then 42% searched online for information, while 38% looked up that information on the computer. And then if you notice, if you go down to saw TV commercial, we get a response of 11%. So while we did cut off some of our television when the pandemic hit, we did pick that back up later in the year, and we had a fall and Christmas campaign. And so, you know, we've been researching this very heavily over the last several years and encouraging our committees to really be in support of focusing more on our digital marketing campaigns. And so the Marketing Oversight Committee under the TCD did vote this year based on research to move to a 60% digital, 40% television in the media spend. So I wanted to note that, and then research here shows that to be true as well. And then when we look at overall U.S. travel performance, the U.S. Travel Association is forecasting that leisure travel will have been down by 24% when all figures are in for 2020. But it also forecasts that it will grow rapidly for the next 2 years to make up for the losses. And then when we're looking at business travel, it was impacted even more in 2020 and will take a little bit longer. And you'll see the growth of what they're projecting year over year, where 2021 will be up 23.8%, 2022 expected to be up 72.7%, and then you see on 9.6 and 5.6 in those years going up to 2024. I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, so I'm happy to answer any questions from the group.
Mr. Mayor?
Any questions? Mr. Skanes?
Yes, sir. Rachel, thank you for that, the work that y'all are doing. I know it's tough, it's boot leather. Just want to make a couple of statements and ask a couple questions. I think by the assertions we've seen in here, U.S. travel was down. And again, we're not in this little world here. It was just Branson that was down. This was nationwide down. And I think you gave the proper indication there. I want to thank you guys for your decision to take on discussions with the theaters to help them through this, because they were the ones most adversely affected, it seems like, this last year. And thank you guys so much for doing that. I think it means a lot to them, and it means a lot to the community to show that you care. I think that decision to make, to move some of that money away from video and radio advertising into digital was a good decision. And I have to say this with a smile on my face. when we decided to add digital marketing back years ago when we started the tourism district. I was confronted by an individual who said, I don't understand why you want to do that. Don't you know the internet's going to be anything? Not anything. So I just, hey, whatever. But the question that I'm going to ask, have you seen a long-term change away from hotels and motels towards other accommodations? I paid a lot of attention to that. You see that moving forward? Do you think that was a one-year trend or what?
I definitely think that the increase or the decrease in hotel motels this year was substantially larger than we anticipated to be moving forward, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of that was where people really needed to, they wanted to be in a space where they were going to have it for a week or 2 weeks, and they were going to feel comfortable of people not coming in and out, and they were going to feel themselves safe. So I think that was a large shift, that we won't see those sizes of shifts moving forward. Have we seen that a little bit over time? I mean, we've continued to see all of those areas grow for sure, but that was a significant decrease.
Did you get any feedback from people about the prices while they were here in Branson of accommodations? Was that part of any of the discussion, or was that sort of a moot point?
No. Okay. We didn't hear any pricing complaints, and I know that a lot of the properties that we spoke to were getting their a better ADR than what they had expected.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Rachel. Thanks for answering the questions.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, can I just make a comment to Alderman Skanes? Briefly, Alderman Skanes, when you look at the hotel versus that's nightly rentals versus VRBO, those things, I think what we're really finding in the market is the younger demographic, more your millennial is looking for that unique experience that's kind of putting them into the VRBO. I think your 55 plus demographic, they're still a little more sided towards a hotel experience that they're used to, a safe environment that they're used to. And then where you start talking about the meetings and conventions and then the sports groups, those are the ones that are obviously still going to maintain a lot of your hotel inventory. From a leisure standpoint, it is kind of across the board, but we are seeing a shift in the millennial for that more unique experience. But I think as we as a destination really start to build meetings, conventions, and sports, I think that's where you'll start to see more of an uptick in our hotel occupancy. And again, they book out, future years, 23, 24, 25. So that will be base business for our market when we book those groups. And then our leisure will just fill on top of it. So the hotels, and the other thing that we have to look at is obviously flag loyalty as well. We have, travelers are flag loyal. And so depending on the hotels that you have in market will also determine how they're going to choose their property. We don't have like a Hyatt here, for instance. So if we don't have a Hyatt and they're loyal to that, then they're going to possibly look at other options like VRBO or a nightly rental, something along those lines.
Jason, do you have any assumptions on the impact this summer? What I understood is they doubled the amount of teams that they were going to be dealing with. The impact this summer on hotel and motel rooms, and just any type of assessment you might have on that.
Alderman, I'll follow up on that for you. I don't have any specific that I want to state, on record, but I'll follow up and share with the committee so that you guys have a more outlook on what exactly is happening at Ballparks of America.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Simmons.
Rachel, I wondered if you have a feel, what direction are you going this year? Has that changed? Are we looking at Texas being big again? Are we looking at Oklahoma, Chicago? Has that demographic changed? And are we going to concentrate in one area over another next year?
We are definitely for 2021, because of the reduced budget, obviously from a TCD standpoint, as well as the city standpoint. I mean, our city budget is 1.5 and, it's been more around 3.3. So when we look at really trending down on those budgets, we are focusing much more regionally in those customers that we're targeting. That being said, that's more regional from a perspective of TV. From a digital perspective, we are hitting hard Chicago, Dallas, and those markets like you're talking about that really show high visitation numbers for us. So just know that we're covering it all from a nationwide perspective. We're hitting it from a digital standpoint because we can be much more efficient, much more targeted in the message that we're serving and who we're serving it to and serving it to them at the right time. So just know that just because we may not be doing TV in Dallas doesn't mean that we're not making sure that Dallas is taken care of.
Thank you, Rachel.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. Let me ask a real question real quick, Larry, to follow that up. So basically, we have less money, but we're getting more bang for our buck out of digital than we would out of regular media. Okay. I'm sorry, Larry. I talked over you. Go ahead.
Milton?
Rachel, would you share how much money did the CVB receive from the CARES Act in 2020?
Larry, I don't have that right in front of me because I wasn't prepared to give you that.
Okay. Would you follow up with that? And when you did,
I'll send that to you right after the meeting, Larry. I apologize.
Okay. And were you able to spend that on advertising and promotion?
Yes.
Okay, great. Are you
Yes,
anticipating?
It was all media spend.
Great. Are you anticipating any money in 2021 from CARES Act?
From CARES Act, not specifically for marketing, the way that we received it from, so it was a federal grant distributed through Missouri Division of Tourism. So do we have expectations of receiving something like that this year? Not as of yet that we've heard specific to marketing.
Thank you, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate the report. Do we have any citizens that are, we do not have any citizens that have signed up to ask any questions. So when the Alderman has spoken, we're ready to move on. Thank you all very, very much for your report.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your support of our organization. Definitely appreciate it.
Thank you. And Larry, I'll send you an email with that information.
And Jamie, I missed that you were going to do a staff report, but I figured that you probably would just turn it over to these good folks. Is there anything you want to add? I guess not. All right. We're ready to move on to item number 12. First reading of bill number 5968. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction?
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5968, an ordinance approving the contract with Environmental Systems Research Institute Incorporated for the enterprise license agreement and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
All right. I have a staff report from Keith Francis.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. This is a renewal for our Environmental Systems Research Institute, in other words, known as ESRI or ESRI. It's basically our GIS system we use in the engineering department. This is probably one of our most important parts of our engineering department is our GIS. There's probably not a day goes by I don't talk with Curtis and Stephen 2 or 3 times a day getting information from them for different projects. But with this contract, it's our third renewal for a 3-year agreement with ESRI. This contract goes from 2021 to March 26th of 2021 through March 25th of 24. And the total amount was $82,500. The individual amount for each year was $27,500 and was included in the engineering department's operating budget for the enterprise license agreement. This has a fixed price for each year for the next 3 years. If we would do this separately for each license like we used to do before we had the enterprise license agreement, this would cost us approximately $3,000 per seat or per license to put it on each computer, which right now we have it on approximately 37 computers in the city's total employees. So you can take 3,000 times 37, that's a pretty good chunk of money, and we're saving thousands of dollars each year by doing the enterprise license agreement. Staff recommends approval of this and be glad to answer any questions.
All right, you've heard the first reading of Bill 5968. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We do not have any citizens who are signed up to speak on this matter. Any alderman wishing to speak? Julia King.
Yes, Keith, did I read that there's no other vendor competitors that can offer?
Wow.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Julia.
Did I read correctly that there's no other competitors in this space or other vendors to even consider if we wanted to? This is the provider, which is very valuable, but they're the only ones that do it.
The ESRI system is internationally known as the GIS system, you know, basically worldwide. And everywhere I've ever worked in my career, it's always ESRI. And they are the most universal system there is out there that works with other people's data, such as the Christian County GIS, the Taney County Beacon. They get their data from the ESRI. And so it's basically a standalone, if you will, type of software, you know, out there.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Mr. Milton.
Keith, I know we have an enterprise license and you mentioned it's on 37 different computers.
Yes, sir.
The staff that are on those 37 computers, how often do they use this program?
Well, I can't vouch for everybody else, but it's every morning I walk into the office, that's one of the first things I start up, and I leave it running constantly all day long because I use it every 5 minutes. I'm utilizing our GIS. That's how important it is to our engineering department.
Oh, sure. I'm just asking the other 37.
I'm sure they use it quite often because every department I know of in the city there utilize it. Police department, fire department, planning, IT probably uses it somewhat, utilities department, parks department. We all utilize it, you know, quite heavily.
Thank you, Keith.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments for Keith?
Mr. Mayor, I have an accompanist with me. She's hollering to sit on Grandpa's knee, so I apologize.
Are you asking for permission for her to vote?
I don't know. But she was throwing a fit when I was in the other room. Keith, just an assessment on your behalf. You said that how much would you estimate that this saves us?
Well,
totally.
As a norm, if you took the 27,500 and divided it by our 37 users, that's about $743 per computer it's put on. Otherwise, it would be approximately $3,000 per computer if we done a single license agreement per computer.
So in your estimation, this is saved by going this way, the city a lot of money, and this is a wise use of taxpayers' funds.
And we've been doing this since 2015 with the SRI.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Believing that you're ready, Madam Clerk, would you now provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, vote is 6-0. It passes.
Thank you. Ready to move on to item number 13. It's a first reading of bill number 5969. Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5969, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement between Taney County and the city of Branson to allow the county to provide funding toward the cost of the city's planned 2021 sewer system improvements and authorizing the mayor to execute the contract.
Thank you. We begin with a staff report from Kendall Powell. Kendall?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. The Taney County Commission, as part of its 2021 budget, has set aside funding from the county's half-cent sewer sales tax, which may be used for planned sewer system improvement projects that have been submitted by municipalities within Taney County. This funding is provided for municipal projects that meet capital improvement criteria as described in the county's sewer sales tax usage guidelines. Branson Utilities provided Taney County with information for 4 possible 2021 city sewer improvement projects that meet the outlined capital criteria. Funding was not available at the time our projects were originally reviewed. Since the first review, additional funds have become available. With this information, the city requested that the project for public sewer main extension, Country Bluff construction, be reconsidered for funding in the 2021 budget, since this project would benefit affordable housing in the Branson area. If approved, sewer sales tax funding up to $85,000 will be made available to the city of Branson to expend toward the cost of this project. However, it would not be eligible. It would not obligate Branson to proceed with this project. As projects that are approved by the board progress and invoicing is received, staff will submit copies of those invoices to the county for reimbursement of our cost up to the allowed $85,000 limit. This project is briefly described in our following detailed analysis page. So happy to staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Kendall. Do I have a motion? You've heard the first reading bill number 5969. Do I have a motion approving the bill?
So moved.
Second.
Dewey King, Bill Skane, second. All right. We do not have any citizens that are signed up to speak. Are there any aldermen wishing to speak on this matter? Dewey King.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to get clarification that if we approve this, we are not obligated to utilize the 85 in funding towards the sewer system near Country Bluff Estates. If we reprioritize later on, those are funds that can be utilized for other sewer system projects. Is that correct?
No, ma'am, that money has to be utilized for that project alone.
Okay. So we're not obligated to do the project, but the funds can only be used for that specific project.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thanks for the clarity. Mr. Milton.
Yeah, Julie, that was a great question. Kendall, so this $85,000 is for the 5-acre tract that has been approved for the affordable housing. Is that correct?
It would be for the tract of land that is just west of Country Bluff itself to serve sewer to that property. Just be to the edge of that development.
Okay, I'm trying to get some clarity on that. That's, I believe, a 55 acre tract next to Country Bluff Estates. And give or take 5 acres has been approved for affordable housing. So is this $85,000 sewer fund not associated with or connected with the 5 acre of affordable housing?
Well, what this 85,000 would do would be to extend sewer from the Country Bluff Estates area over to the western, or excuse me, the east property line of that 55 acres. It does not extend it all the way to that. I'm assuming you said 5 acre tract for the affordable housing. It just extends it to the 55 acres.
Joel?
Yeah, I just wanted the opportunity to come on and help provide some clarification. So when we talked about the property next to Country Bluff Estates, at that time, when you all were considering annexation and zoning, there was an MHDC project approved on that property. However, in order for the developer to keep those funds from the Missouri Housing Development Commission, they were required to move that project. So that affordable housing project has been relocated to the north, about a 1/4 acre from that property on Fall Creek Road to a property off of Gulf View Drive, just on the edge of the Thousand Hills development. So that hopefully answers that question about that specific project. But the developer, the property owner, is still looking at development opportunities for that parcel on Fall Creek Road. They did apply for MHDC funds this year for that property, but unfortunately did not receive funding.
Julie
Okay,
came.
so then.
Oh, I'm
then
sorry.
con-
Mr. Milton, sorry, Julia was holding up her hand and I recognized her. And I'll get you.
Just two questions for you, Joel or Kendall, whichever one can answer these. One, has this property that we're discussing already been annexed into the city? And if so, is the city obligated to provide water and sewer?
So if we're particularly talking about lot 35 in Country Bluff Estates, we have received the application and a signed petition from that property owner this week. So we will be submitting that for you all to consider at the next upcoming board meetings.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Milton?
Yeah, I guess I'm still confused. Joe, where is this sewer line? What is this $85,000 going to serve?
So it looks like Kendall's getting ready. Kendall, go for it.
Well, Alderman Melton, the sewer in Country Bluff is a little bit further east of the western boundary of Country Bluff. So what this 85,000 would do would be to upsize a portion of the existing sewer main within Country Bluff. So there's about 125 feet of 6-inch sewer that would have to be upsized to 8-inch. And then it would also extend it 200 more feet to the west to the 55-acre tract of land that's just west of Country Bluff. So take it right to the property, just beyond the property line there of the 55 acres.
Are we being premature on this? I understand if the MH2D funding has been postponed, what's the need of bringing this line onto that property?
So just as Kendall said, it will upsize that line and connect that large property to the city sewer system. This is the only opportunity to connect to the city sewer system in a gravity way. That's a great thing to do versus having a pump station. It'll provide the opportunity for future development in that area, which will have far-reaching benefits to the community than just this development to the west.
And I can add to that as well, Alderman Melton. What this line would do is also help us in the future to eventually extend sewer further west to other properties, and also eventually decommission a couple of existing lift stations in that area. And doing that would also save us on operational cost and maintenance cost in the future. For one, those two existing pump stations actually pump the opposite direction of our treatment plant to the Fall Creek Valley, and then has to be pumped again back over the ridge line over to the Cooper Creek area. So again, it would save us eventually and quite a bit of monies and operationally. And also the property, if I remember, Joel, is annexed. So the 55 acres. So there is a state statute involved there that obligates us to providing utilities as well. So.
Okay, so it is going to eliminate two lift stations that we currently have.
Not at this time, but in the future, it will prepare us to be able to do that.
Okay.
Alderman Key had your hand up.
Yes, actually, Kendall spoke to a question I had about lifting the existing city sewer pump stations. I'm going to go ahead and just bring up the elephant in the room because that has been a controversial location with the developer in that neighborhood. But what I'm hearing is that this has benefits to the city, not just to a developer. And by approving these funds, we are not obligated to move forward with the project.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Jeff, I believe, Jeff C.
So try to clarify this further, and this either for Kendall or Joel. So when we got that portion of that half-cent sewer sales tax, was it committed to this project? Because I know that you mentioned that these funds could only be used for that Country Bluff project. So was that committed prior to his MHDC and or whatever his thing fell through? Is that why we're stuck, or not stuck, but committed to use it only on that project?
So each year we have the opportunity to request projects to be funded through this half-cent sewer sales tax. And we actually applied for 4 different projects. And unfortunately, during the first review, we did not receive any monies for 2021. In previous years, we've received quite a bit of money the last couple of years. So once and Country Bluff was part of those, was part of the 4 projects that we submitted for. So when we heard that some monies became available, we requested that Country Bluff be added back onto the list, and they reviewed that, and like I said, each one of those projects or each one of those requests, the monies is specific for that project, so we can't move it from one project to another. It has to go for that project.
Right, and like the other aldermen have brought up, I remember that lift station conversation, and I think at the time we were talking about, you know, this is good for everybody involved. I know that the Country Bluff residents, you know, they had their complaint about that project, which was, you know, their right to do, because it, you know, it looked pretty egregious there at the onset. So the other question is, like Julia, just to confirm that we don't have to do this, but if we do this and get that and extend that line to their boundary there, that's the only way we can use this money. So it may just sit. Is that what's going to happen?
Well, if we choose not to do the project, then basically we forfeit the money back to the county.
I gotcha. Is there a timeline on that, or?
Yes, I believe it's usually the first week in December of this year. So each year we have to spend the money back.
I gotcha. So basically, since we do have it, and obviously that 55 acres is going to be developed into something, I guess we could sort of look at this as our contribution to the annexation, but not running it any further than the Country Bluff boundary line, and any portion from that is on the developer to connect it there and distribute it out throughout those acres.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Julia?
Yeah, I would like to, if someone could provide an explanation. I think it's important for our citizens, especially our Country Bluff Estates residents, for us to dispel any rumors. Can someone explain the exchange of money, right? So this is a grant from the county and the city is assisting with the efforts. Is there direct checks written to the developer? How is money reimbursed? The exchange of hands? Can we just clear up how money goes from point A, point B, point C in this situation?
Yes, so with the project, we would have to go out for bid as normal for a contractor, and it goes through the standard city processes. As those invoices come in for the project, then we submit those invoices to the county for reimbursement, and then the county pays us for that, and then we in turn pay the contractor.
Okay, so nobody's written an $85,000 check to Mr. Ruda. I just want to make sure that's not happening.
No, ma'am.
It's a county and a city agreement. Mr. Simmons.
Yes, this is for Kendall. Didn't we discuss in an earlier time, Kendall, that when we tie into Fall Creek Road, this sewer line will do some damage out there and have to dig up that road. And the county was considering making some fairly major improvements there, which were needed, not as the people in Country Bluff Estates pointed out, were needed now, regardless of what happens at 55 acres. So this was being, my opinion was, this was being prioritized a bit in order to get it tied into Fall Creek Road, and then let the county go ahead and do their improvements in that area, regardless of the development. Is that anywhere near correct?
Well, Somewhat. So the sewer end does not, let's see, let me back up. The Taney County Road and Bridge project to improve Fall Creek Road in that area. The sewer line is not associated in that area itself. It'd be more of the water main. We was going to put a casing in across Fall Creek Road so that we could extend the water main into this development from a main water line that we have that's across the street from it. So
Thank you. I was mixing the two together then. I'm sorry. Thank you. Appreciate that clarification.
And if my memory serves me correct, it also was trying to do it underground rather than having to dig a hole and stop traffic, do it underground and tie into the systems that we already have in existence. This is just planning to the future, really. There's going to be growth out in that area. There's going to be growth in different places. So it's a future thing. All right. Any other questions? All right. Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approved.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
Your Honor, it passes 6-0.
Thank you. Ready to move on to item number 14. First reading of bill number 5970. Madam Clerk, would you please provide the introduction?
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5970, an ordinance approving a time extension amendment for an intergovernmental agreement between Taney County and the City of Branson regarding the funding of the city's planned 2020 sewer system improvement projects and authorizing the mayor to execute the amendment.
Begin with the staff report from Kendall Powell.
On June 1st of 2020, the city of Branson entered into an agreement with Taney County Commission to obtain a portion of the county's half-cent sewer sales tax to be used for Branson's planned 2020 sewer system improvement projects. On December 7th, 2020, the city of Branson obtained an extension of the agreement due to unforeseen circumstances of COVID-19 resulting in project delays. All the projects, apart from the Compton Drive wastewater treatment plant, flood protection, subgrade, and preliminary design engineering have been completed. The second amendment of the contract is being organized to allow for the completion of the Compton preliminary design phase. Discoveries made during the field investigations of subgrade conditions for the Compton Drive wastewater plant flood protection project have required additional detailed design reviews. Investigations and lab analysis of soil and rock samples have also taken longer than anticipated. Our engineering consultant is also working with the United States Corps of Engineers on the final details of the wall construction requirements. Taney County has prepared an extension request for the city approval and signatures. With final approval of the county commission, the agreement termination date will extend from March 31st, 2021 to May 31st, 2021. Staff recommends approval.
All right, you've heard the first reading bill number 5970. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Is that Jeff that made the second? Jeff, see, yeah. All right. We do not have any citizens signed up to speak, but do any aldermen have any questions in regard to extending this agreement?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Skanes.
Kendall, this is just an extension time frame in order to do this. Is there money involved or just time frame extension? That's it.
It is a time frame extension with money. So last year, one of our projects was the Compton Drive wastewater treatment plant flood protection preliminary design. And the tonight you read the final reading on the amendment to a contract we had with HDR Engineering. They were running behind on their design due to conflicts in the subgrade, and it took a significant amount of geotechnical analysts work to work through those issues, and so we extended their contract till April 30th of this year. And with this time extension tonight is to extend it to May 31st. And so that'll allow us to get their final invoicing in and then submit it to the county before this expires.
How much might that be, Kendall? Do you know?
I don't know exact number, but I do know it's a little over 200,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Kendall? Sensing you want to vote, Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call vote?
King,
Approve.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Approved.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0. It passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ready to move to item number 15, first reading of bill number 5971. Madam Clerk, please provide the introduction.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5971, an ordinance to establish a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain officials.
Okay. Begin with a staff report from Chris Lebeck. Welcome, Mr.
Thank you,
Lebeck.
Mr. Mayor. Members of the board. This is a bit of routine housekeeping we do biannually. Missouri Ethics Commission and state law requires members of a board of a political subdivision that has a valuation of $1 million or more to provide personal financial disclosures to the state. It also makes that requirement upon the city manager and purchasing agent and the finance director in our context. What this housekeeping does is it allows the city, if we pass what is called an ordinance, we pass a model ordinance and put that on our books, it allows us to use a short form to provide for that disclosure. A lot of you have probably recently this year gotten something that looks like this in the mail, which is a Missouri Ethics Commission personal financial disclosure letter. That is the vehicle by which you can file that short form online. The only way we can get to this point is if we have an ordinance on the books, and that ordinance is on file with the Missouri Ethics Commission. So again, this is housekeeping we have to do every couple of years, and staff's recommending approval so that we can take advantage of this opportunity to basically give you the ability to have an abbreviated way to disclose potential financial interest conflicts. Thank you.
Thank you. Heard the first reading of bill number 5971. Do I have a motion approving the bill?
So move.
Second.
Motion's been, and a second been given. Don't have any citizens who are signed up. So any alderman wishing to ask any questions?
Yes, sir. Mr. Milton, I'd like to pull Mr. Lebeck's ear a minute.
Mr. Milton.
Chris, I don't recall receiving that. Would I have received that in 2020, that letter?
Yeah, you should have. And as a potential candidate, it should have been on file. What I will need to do, Alderman Milton, let me confirm with Ms. Westfall if your candidate packet that you filed complies with this, because that may have gotten you there. And Alderman Skanes, I'm confused why you didn't get yours, but I will do some exploration to figure out where it is, because this can be filed either directly, they send you credentials, or you can file it directly by creating an account and mailing the paper in. But I will get with you and work on that as well.
I got mine as an email and already filed it. That's why I wanted to know if it's something separate than what I've already done.
No, I get mine by letter format, and Lisa's trying to speak, so I'll yield the floor.
So Alderman Milton, you do not tell me you have a conflict, so you would not get that. Only if you have a conflict do you get that. So if you did not file as any conflict that you do business with the city of Branson, you do not receive that. Alderman Skanes has, and I do note that. So it's part of the notation I do every year, and I send that email out every year asking that.
Okay, it's because I don't do business over $500 with the city of Branson.
That's what that requirement is, yes.
Thank you.
I mean, so mine here says I have to have it in by May 3rd. And I know that I had filled out there could be potential conflict with doing business with the city. So I got mine by mail.
Thank
And
you,
as
Chris.
Attorney Lebec said, you got the short form because we keep this file. It comes up every 2 years, and we just are required to turn it in renew it every 2 years, the ordinance.
Exactly. And there's a time limit. We have to do this by September, I think it's 25th. And if we don't have this on file, then everybody has to go through the exercise in state law, which is a chore, to be quite honest with you. So again, the ordinance that's before you today is the same ordinance that you have gotten many times over the years, because the Missouri Ethics Commission provides a model ordinance for us to use. So this is not something that was crafted in-house. This is something that the state recommends if we want to go down this path that we utilize.
Chris, one question is, with the elections in April, and this is due in September, would it be more appropriate for the incoming board to approve this?
Well, we're up against a time constraint right now with regards to this current ordinance. That's why it's before the board right now. Because of timing, this thing got moved up and up and up and up and farther. If we don't have this on file before the previous ordinance expires, then we don't get the opportunity to use this
for
the next go round. So it's just like literally like a contract.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you please provide a roll call vote?
Dean,
Approved.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Skanes,
Don't you call Bob Simmons my name. Yes.
Milton,
Please don't call me Skanes. Yes.
There you go.
B.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes.
We're now ready for item number 16. First reading of bill number 5972. Madam Clerk, please provide.
Your Honor, this is the first reading of bill number 5972, an ordinance amending chapter 14 of the Branson Municipal Code pertaining to animals by repealing said chapter in its entirety and enacting a new chapter in lieu thereof.
Begin with a staff report from Jeff Matthews.
Mayor and members of the board, before you tonight is a request to repeal and replace Branson Municipal Code Chapter 14, the Animal Ordinance. In January 2018, the city of Branson took over animal control duties from Taney County. The transition included hiring 2 animal control officers, acquiring an old vehicle from Taney County, and accepting all animal control responsibilities except animal shelter services. We contract with Taney County for all animal shelter service operations. The Chapter 14 ordinance was reviewed by 25 local stakeholders, veterinarians, commercial facility managers, and others. This group agreed with the recommendations, but asked that we allow for savanna cats as being household cats, provide ample education time before instituting the fee-based licensing requirements, and allow clipped winged chickens instead of mandating surgically clipped winged chickens. Currently, Chapter 14 in the Municipal Code contains very general and subjective language. Many parts of the ordinance were last amended in the mid-90s and are in need of significant updates. Staff has researched local ordinances, MML model ordinances, and consulted with area stakeholders to Chapter 14 that you have before you tonight. Tonight's recommendations align with municipal codes from across multiple jurisdictions, including several jurisdictions with commercial facilities similar to those that we have in Branson. The ordinance contains an updated definitions section that utilizes standardized terms widely accepted across the industry. It expands the city's ability to inspect commercial facilities for the proper care of animals. This section includes attractions, exhibits, and retail facilities. It provides for inspection authority to ensure facilities have plans to mitigate animal escapes and that they also have comprehensive animal and human safety plans in place, that they have proper enclosures, and that they have appropriate size-specific enclosures for their animals. The ordinance prohibits certain exotic animals, including venomous snakes, some reptiles, big cats, bears, alligators, and others. The dangerous dogs section has been enhanced to include specific behavior-based definitions and adds a hearing examiner process that determines when an animal is to be identified as a dangerous dog. The ordinance also reduces the mandatory stray hold from 7 days to 10 days to align with state law and saves the city $30 per stray animal released to the shelter. The ordinance also institutes a fee-based pet licensing system that limits the number of domestic pets per household. Many Missouri municipalities have similar fee-based licensing permitting systems and pet limitations, including the city of Hollister has a $3 annual fee for both altered and unaltered pets and limits the number of household pets to 3 animals per household. Ozark has a $2.50 annual fee for altered pet and $4 for unaltered and limits 3 pets per household. Nixa has a $2 annual licensing fee for an altered pet, $3 for an unaltered, and allows only 4 animals per household. Branson West has a $5 fee for altered pets, $10 for unaltered, does not address limitations within a household. The city of Forsyth has a $2 annual fee for any pet and limits 2 animals per household. Joplin does not charge for altered pets, but has a $20 fee for an unaltered pet for the license and limits 4 animals per household. Rockaway Beach, a $5 for altered, $7 for unaltered, 3 animals per household. Kansas City has 2 fee structures, one at $10 and one at $27, an annual fee or the 3-year rabies fee for $27, and Kansas City limits 4 animals per household. Columbia has 3 fee schedules, a $5, a $10, and a $15 based on the annual rabies vaccination, a 1, 2, or a 3-year vaccination cycle, and limits to 4 animals. St. Louis has a $4 fee for altered pet, $50 fee for unaltered pet, does not address the limitations. Cape Girardeau has a $3 fee, a $1 fee for seniors, and then a $15 and a $5 respectively for an unaltered pet, does not address limitations. The Branson fee schedule before you tonight is recommending a $10 fee, licensing fee for an altered pet and a $25 fee for unaltered pets, with an exemption for seniors 65 and older, not to have to pay a fee, but to have a license. The proposed ordinance limits domestic pets to 6 pets per household and 3 pets for hotels. The licensing system is developed to encourage the annual rabies vaccinations and provide for quick return for lost or stray pets. Mr. Mayor and members of the board, staff recommends the repeal of the current Chapter 14 and replacement with the ordinance before you tonight. Staff recommends this, as I said, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jeff. You've heard the first reading of Bill number 5972. Do I have a motion approving this bill?
So moved.
So moved. Julia King, second?
Second.
I didn't catch you. Was that Jamie?
Second, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. So we have a motion and a second. Apparently we have a speaker tonight. So Madam Clerk, would you please introduce our speaker?
Your Honor, we have one speaker tonight on this item. It's Chris Bohines. Address is 114 West Long Street, Branson, Missouri.
Thank you.
Ms. Bohines, can you hear us okay?
I can.
Good deal. I'll start your 3-minute clock and you can begin.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and Board, thank you for allowing me to provide input on this item. I assume you already know that this ordinance has not been updated for decades. As it stands right now, there are no commercial codes except for licensing. Since it was written so long ago, we now have 2 zoos in Branson, as well as an aquarium and other animal exhibits. Let me back up for just a moment. Why are codes even written? They originate with citizens like us who believe certain problems would best be resolved with help. For example, most people are thankful there's a law that everyone should carry liability insurance. But as for the animal ordinance, I see it as a public safety issue. If a tiger or other dangerous animal were loose, the public would expect and want our police department helping. I know there are citizens who call certain things government overreach, but please know that Branson already has an animal ordinance, and this is what they're trying to redo because it's been on the book for decades. There are so many items in this rewrite that are actually less restrictive. For example, currently, cats cannot run at large, meaning they must be leashed or indoor. With this new ordinance, your cats actually may run loose. I can only speak for myself, but as a grandmother, I would not want my grandchild to see dog fighting, bait dogs, animal abuse, and things like that. And without codes, without any kind of, government help, these things could be right next door to our own homes. And that's why I support reasonable regulations that will protect us, our families, neighbors, and our Branson visitors. Again, thank you for listening, and I ask that you vote yes for this item. And that's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any aldermen have any comments or questions for Jeff? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just wanted to say one thing. I haven't had a chance to review it, Chief, and I really don't know what's in it. And it's nobody's fault one way or another. I get that we want to do something like this, Mr. Mayor. I would really like to be able to review something like this before I feel comfortable with it. I do trust what the work that's been done. I've known Chris a very long time, and I know she's very involved, but I haven't had a chance to personally go over it, and I don't know if any of the others have. I feel a little uncomfortable saying to vote on it if I've not really seen it and gone through it yet. That's no fault of anybody, just haven't seen it.
Mr. Simmons?
I did have one question. The every year thing, is there any way to make that every 2 years? Aren't there shots that are good for 2 years? That would cut the workload in half on pets, just on pets. And generally pets are probably not our biggest problem. And if we could make that for 2 years, it would cut the work in half for both the citizens and the police department. Is that possible?
Yes, sir, it is. There are multiple year vaccinations, rabies vaccination available, and that would be feasible.
Would it take an amendment in the process to do it now, or?
Could I make a clear amendment, Chief, or would it require you looking other places in the proposed ordinance to make sure there are no conflicts? Or
Chief Matthews, I can chime in and assist Alderman Simmons with that. If we look at the ordinance, I'm looking specifically at page 47, Appendix A, starting at line 2293. That's where the fee structure resides. And within chapter 14 animals, there are 2 lines that address the 1-year annual license, unaltered pet, $20, 1-year annual license, altered pet, $10. Those 2 pieces would need to be modified, and that's between lines 2294 and 2295 on page 47 and 48.
Okay. I was looking on page 47, I guess, was the one that I was seeing the 2. I didn't see the other location, though, the one you mentioned first, besides this page 47.
That's the same location, Alderman. It's
okay.
They're back to back. It's the line numbering, for whatever reason, doesn't play nice with tables. So it's right in between there. So there's basically 2 lines if you wanted to make that motion that you would have to amend.
So I would propose an amendment to this in line 2294, where it says 1-year annual license, unaltered pet, 1-year annual license for altered pet. I would like to change those in the amendment to 2-year annual license for both of those.
Okay, that's a form of a motion.
Yes.
We would first vote on the motion to amend the ordinance. And is there a second for that?
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? Mr. Milton?
I guess I'm just not sure I guess we can vote on this motion and we'll just continue having further discussion.
Well, if we, my understanding, Larry, is that we're only going to vote on the amendment to the ordinance, and then we'll vote on the ordinance as amended.
Okay.
Would it be proper to ask the question at this particular time, what the fee structure would be on the every 2 years? Would that be a reduced fee structure, prorated? Chris, how was that looked at?
It's based on how the amendment is made. So right now the amendment is just, we're making an amendment to do biannual. So again, that's ultimately up to you all. If you want to make a further amendment to alter that fee structure, you can. Again, I'm gonna yield the floor to Chief Matthews, because again, he can speak more competently to the fee structure as it relates to staff time if we go to a biannual metric.
My intent was to leave it the same.
Sure. Let me correct something that I've got my staff with me tonight, and they have told me there's a 1-year option and a 3-year option, Mr. Simmons, for the rabies. It's a 3-year rabies, a 1 as opposed to a 2-year. So we would have to adjust that to make it a 2-year. And if that's the board's pleasure to keep it at a $10 for the 1 year and a $20 for the 3-year, whatever that fee structure that you want would be appropriate for us.
We have a motion on the floor. Mr. Simmons, would you wish to change your motion?
I do, but do we have to vote on it as it is? Before I wasn't aware of the 1 year and the 3-year. So obviously it wouldn't be good to do a 2-year when you can do a 3. So do we have to vote on the amendment as first and seconded? I would withdraw that amendment if the second would withdraw.
Yeah, that the 3-year for 20, it's the same thing. If you did it for 2 years, double the fee, you're getting an extra year for the same cost. So yeah, I would withdraw.
Can we have a new motion then? Motion's been withdrawn.
A new motion on those same lines on 2294 for the 1-year annual license unaltered pet, 1-year annual license altered pet, and make those 3-year annual license for unaltered pet and 3-year annual license for altered pet. And I deliberately did not change the fee structure, but that could be discussed.
Just we're trying, to legislate on the fly here a little bit, but if some licensing may be 2 years or shots may be 2 years, so could it be an up to 3-year time frame for clarity?
So, Mr. Based on the information that I'm being provided, the rabies shots come in a 1-year annual or a 3-year shot.
Okay. And that's the only option area that we have shots would be affected by this.
Sure.
All right.
And then real quick, just to clarify, when we're looking at the fee schedule, this is page 47 and 48. The amendments are just to the animal license fee, the annual license fee. There is still, if you own a potentially dangerous dog, there is an annual renewal provision in that fee schedule. Or if you own a dangerous dog, there is still an annual renewal schedule in there. Again, so that's a completely different compartment here within our fee schedule. I think Alderman Simmons, and I don't mean to speak for him, I think he was zeroed in just on the, we'll call it the general animal license fee for the city.
Yeah, not on the dangerous life. That's correct. I was leaving it the same.
Thank you. Just want to clarify that for the board.
Mr. Simmons, would you do me a favor and please restate your motion now, and then we can get a second.
Yes, my motion would be on pages 47, 48, under 2294, where it says 1 year annual fee license, 1 year annual license, unaltered pet, 1 year annual license, altered pet, that we change that to 1 year or 3 year unaltered pet, 1 year or 3 year altered pet, and leave the fee as it is.
Okay. You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Can I have a clarification?
Yeah, this
So
is
it's 1 year or 3 year? Is that?
Yes, and I don't know how you put it in there, but it was dependent upon the type of shot they get, the type of rabies shot they get.
So is there a second to Mr. Simmons' motion for this amendment to the original ordinance? Will it die for a lack of second?
I'll go second.
Okay, there's a second. All right. Any discussion?
So has the pricing stayed the same no matter if you're getting a 1 year or 3 year, it costs the same, or does the price adjust, Chief Matthews? Or are we putting in place something to where regardless if it's 1 year or 3 year, you pay the exact same amount?
I think that was what I heard in the motion for the amendment. There was, regardless if it's a 1 year or a 3 year for an altered pet, it's $10, or a 1 year or a 3 year for an unaltered, it would be $20 is I believe what I heard.
That's based on the cost. The cost would be the same.
Mr. Milton?
I know we're talking about the fee structure, and if it's in a different section, just let me know, but what's the penalty if somebody does not license their pet and pay this fee? Is that a different section, Chris?
That's a good question, Alderman Milton. So in our city code, we have a generalized penalty provision, that's section 1-13. And then that generalized penalty provision is abrogated by state law. With the passage of Senate Bill 5, we are kind of locked in for our ordinances or ordinance violations that do not affect the health and safety of others or do not involve controlled substances. And for a first-time offense, it's capped at $225. So again, like with other ordinances we've had, this is something that is provided for, gives the judge, our municipal judge, discretion in how they enforce it. So it can be anywhere from 0 up to $225, and that is including court costs for a first-time offense.
Mr. Simmons?
Mayor, the 2 lines down from that, there is a late fee for each license. Could that be handled under that late fee?
That's a good question. The late fee, the intent behind that, as I understand it, is that's the administrative fee for having to go after and collect this. But again, I go back to the fact that we have a generalized penalty provision that provides for any ordinance violation. So again, that's as we go back to, we trust our law enforcement that they do a good job, that they can exercise their discretion. And since animal control is a part of law enforcement, this whole framework will be something enforced by Chief Matthews' department. I think they will exercise the appropriate discretion in how to enforce those for those that are forgetful versus chronic violators, if you will.
Julia King has her hand up.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to make a statement here. I obviously support our Branson Police Department, and they are accountable for animal control. It's very apparent to me that a lot of thought process and hard work and collaboration has gone into this ordinance to get it where it's at today. I don't think perfection should delay putting this in place. But I do think there's opportunity for some future amendments to be made. I don't see a reason why this can't be put in place now and we continue to perfect it in the days to come. So I don't disagree with you, Alderman Simmons, that there's some opportunity for improvement, but I'm not going to be in favor of doing it on the fly this evening, but I am going to be in favor of passing the ordinance as is. And I just wanted to put that out there before we take the next couple of votes.
Mr. Milton?
All due respect, Alderwoman King, I'm looking at this the other way. This is a 48-page document that has 2,400 lines of text. I understand Alderman Skane's point of view. He hasn't had the opportunity to read it because it's quite in depth. I would think an ordinance like this, we would want to encourage public input on this. This affects, I don't know what percentage of people in Branson have pets. I've been told over 50%. So we're discussing a ordinance tonight that's going to affect the majority of people in Branson. When the people in Branson, I'm going to suggest to you, the people I talked to today and asked them if they knew we were having this discussion tonight, 100% of them said no. The fact that we had one caller, Chris Bohink, was the only one who called in to address this. I guess I'm raising the question, do the aldermen feel that we've done a good job letting the public know that we're even discussing this and soliciting their input? Because with one caller in, I'm feeling like we're making a decision to the community and not for them by getting their input. And I'd be curious to hear Alderman. Yep.
Jeff Matthews.
I appreciate those comments. This proposal came before the board in a study session some time ago, and that initial study session, the board asked us to go back to the community and get community input in this. That spurred us to send letters to 25, as I said in the presentation, veterinarians, commercial facilities, and the like in the community. We got those comments. We brought it back to a second study session and have provided the board 2 study sessions with this information. So I feel like we've done, Mr. Milton, what the board has requested of us as far as securing that community buy-in in this ordinance amendment.
Okay, when I recall that discussion, when I was using the term community, I was referring to our residents, not 25 selected professionals.
We have a motion to amend on the floor and a second. Are we ready to vote on that? Please roll call, Madam Clerk.
Dean,
No.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
No.
Milton,
No.
C.
No.
Your Honor, the amendment fails 2-4.
Okay. Now are we ready to vote on the original motion? Mr. Milton?
Again, I would strongly encourage this board to postpone this. Let's advise our residents and our community that this is something that our board is considering passing and that we would like to have their input before we impose this on our community. Everybody has to see that if we've only had one caller in, out of everybody that lives in Branson, if they knew we were voting on this ordinance tonight, don't you think we would have community input? Not professionals. I'm talking about our residences.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This is one of those rare instances where Larry Melton and I agree on something. I appreciate all the work the chief's done in the input, but I think it'd be wise to consult back with the community, Mr. Mayor, especially on something like this. You want to mess with somebody, you mess with their children or their pets, and they really come out of the woodwork. And I don't blame them. I have 2 small dogs myself, and I was kind of balking at that issue of paying a $10 license fee for dogs that don't go outside and run around. And both of them are fixed. But this is a sensitive issue to pet owners, and you may have to get their input. And I think Larry's right on that. You need to get some input from them. That doesn't say that what the police have done is not a bad thing, because it's not. And that proper input is in there. But the public as a whole, I don't think they look very proud upon us at this point if we moved on without getting their input.
Mayor, can I jump in before John gets in there?
Excuse me just a moment. I see that John Manning has come on and wants to share. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to highlight that I've confirmed with the staff as this is going on that we have followed all of our normal standard operating procedures in terms of not only providing the board the documents required, but for, seeking out the citizen input, putting all the documents out there, going through all the proper study sessions. And I know this particular one has been going on even literally, I think before I got here 2 years ago. Because I think I've been to about 3 study sessions on this one, in addition to the one Jeff mentioned. So I just wanted to highlight, we did follow our standard operating procedures. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. Now, which alderman, Jeff say?
Yeah, and I think John sort of addressed one of my questions, because I was about to ask either Chief Matthews is, when was this study session? Either I missed it or it was a long time ago. And I need to fall in line with Larry and Bill. I panned through this yesterday and today, and my process would be that I need to go through this and draw a line down piece of paper and said, okay, I get this, but this needs discussion. And the discussion side is going to outweigh greatly the stuff that I can just respond to and say, yeah, I get that. That sounds good. This is a fresh study session, if anything, type of item. There's a lot here, and Bill alluded to it just now about this is going to be a hot potato with people and their pets. I understand that, but it's something that like Larry said, if they found out that we passed the first reading of this, there would be an outcry, definitely. So. Whatever we need to do, if we need to, address this at a later time, that's where I would be.
And Jeff, I just want to follow up on that. One example, excuse me.
I'm sorry. Julia had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. You're going to pass? Okay. Go ahead, Larry.
And Chief, I don't know if this is for you or for Chris, but there's examples. For example, I believe I read in there that, and I need your assistance, but if an animal has been picked up by animal control, before the owner can get it back, does it say that the animal must be microchipped?
Yes, sir.
Oh, see,
that's consistent with the model policies, the model ordinances that we reviewed.
And Chief, please don't misunderstand. I'm not arguing with what you're putting out there. my point is for the community, there is so much in here. Can you imagine we pass something that has much more, but at least something in there saying for them to get their pet back, it needs to be microchipped? We need community.
Sure.
We need the community to understand what it is we're doing.
Mr. Milton, understand from our perspective, we were asked to present you with a very up-to-date ordinance dealing with animals. And I believe that our team has worked hard to meet that objective. And what is before you tonight is what I consider a very detailed and aligns with other municipalities, an ordinance to regulate animals, not only those domestic pets, but also the commercial establishments, mitigation plans for escapes for the wild animals that we do have in town. And it's very far reaching beyond the domestic pets that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, and I truly appreciate the amount of work that went into it, Chief. I could clearly see that probably hundreds of hours that have gone in to make a document this thorough. So I compliment you on that. I'm just raising the question that it is complex, and I just, our community really needs to hear what it is we're talking about and what it is we're voting on. And I really think we need their input, or like Alderman C said, it's going to be a hot potato.
Is that a motion, Larry?
I would make a motion to postpone this until we've had community input.
Have to have a specific date, Larry.
Boy, I don't know how long it would. I'm open for suggestions of how to have a meeting specifically on this topic, because there's a lot of time. I see Chris just got on, but I don't think it's in an Alderman meeting. I think this is a topic that the community is going to want to thoroughly discuss.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just looking for some guidance here. If we do decide to do a postponement to a date certain, which is our normal practice, what additional steps do we need to take besides what we've done to this point, which is started this process 18 months ago. We did 2 study sessions, actually 3 study sessions. We sought input from community leaders in the veterinary and animal fields. And we followed, as John said, standard operating procedure. I just want to understand, if we're going to postpone this, what should we be doing between today and that date that we are contemplating postponement that we haven't already done, so that we can get public engagement? Because I know that Ms. Pettit does a very nice job of publicizing our board meetings and our stuff through all of our various outlets. So again, just looking for some guidance if this does become practice, just so we understand what we need to do, what the board desires us to do to quote unquote get the word out. Thank you.
So, so instead of postponing it, I don't know what the other term is, Mayor, but is there a way to not vote on it or pull it down, allow us to have time for community input, and then put it back on the agenda?
Well, this is a first reading, so there's nothing that's really accomplished. You have a second reading in 2 weeks, and at that time you could postpone it to a time if you want to hold public hearings. But this is the first reading of it. So your choice is, I believe, to answer your question, your choice is if we don't approve it, then it doesn't come up in 2 weeks.
Okay, that'll be my vote.
Are we ready to vote?
So we do not have a motion to postpone. Is that where we're at?
I've heard none because there was no specific date given.
Could I make a motion to postpone for 30 days? Or, I mean, yeah, 2 meetings, give us 30 days for community input?
We'd have to pick a future date on the first.
Okay, whatever the date is in 2 meetings from now. I'll look up the calendar.
John Manning. Did you have something to
Mr.
say?
Mayor, I'd just like to echo Chris's point in relation to what more community input, technique, device, et cetera, are you seeking that hasn't already been done through the study sessions, posting the agenda, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
John, we had 2 study sessions on this. At a study session, the aldermen get to speak. The public does not get to speak. So we have had 2 study sessions where we've had no public input. Do you recall us
Sure.
having any Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Then ideally, the citizens are talking to their alderman. And you are coming here to vote on their behalf.
I propose we postpone this to the Alderman meeting on April 13th, 2 meetings from today.
Second.
The motion and a second. Yes.
Just comment on that, Mayor. That will be the first meeting of the new board.
Right.
Will it not? The election's on the 6th. That'd be a real load to put on a brand new board. That, you know, 3 or 4 of the members may be totally different.
That's correct. So I'll amend my motion to postpone this to the meeting on April 27th, which is 3 meetings from now. Thank you, Bob.
And I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
King,
No.
Vitus,
No.
Simmons,
No.
Skanes,
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C,
Turn your mic on, Jeff.
Sorry. Yes.
we have a vote of 3-3. We have a tie, Mayor. That would leave the tiebreaker vote to you.
Well, this is the first reading. There's time for public input. I'm going to vote no.
So we have a vote that has failed the postponement.
Okay. Now we are ready to vote on the item itself, which is ordinance pertaining to 5972.
So this would be a vote on the first reading of bill number 5972. We ready for that vote, Mayor?
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines,
Yes.
Milton,
Alderman Skanes, you're voting yes and you haven't read it.
We're called for a vote, Larry. It's not question time. Can we have your vote, please?
Oh, boy. Absolutely not. That's a no.
King,
No.
it passes 4-2.
So the first reading of bill number 5972 has passed 4-2. In 2 weeks, this will come back up for a second reading. All right, ready for reports from your wards. The aldermen are given a chance to give out information and to report on their folks within their wards and what's going on, and begin with Alderman King.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to provide an update to our community about the citywide litter pickup that's taking place the last 3 Saturdays in March. We've gotten a lot of volunteers that have registered online. People are excited. People want to help out. It's obvious that this is needed and needed on a regular basis. So just to report some numbers, this coming Saturday, March 13th, we've got over 76 volunteers that have registered online. March 20th, the first day of spring in Ward 2, we've got over 35 volunteers. And March 27th in Ward 3, we've got over 34 volunteers. We've also gotten incredible support from sponsors such as Tanger Outlets, Capital Vacations, Hilliard Janitorial, Intrepid, Alderman C, Mayor Ed Akers, people who are making sure we've got water and refreshments and the supplies and tools we need to ensure that people can be safe and clean up Branson and have a good time. That's all I have to report, Your Honor.
Thank you, Alderman King. Alderman Whitus?
Yes, just echoing that, looking forward to, more volunteers coming out. And back to Julia, where is that meeting place on the 13th?
On the 13th, if you have registered online, you'll get your information packet. We are meeting at the Salt Barn. Do you guys know where the Salt Barn is at?
I do.
Okay, that's where we'll be. So,
We'll
I'll
see
be
you
up
at the
here
Salt
all
Barn.
3 Saturdays, so I look forward to seeing you.
And thanks again for initiating this, and just this is a great thing for our community. Thank you.
Alderman Simmons.
Yes, I would like to thank you for initiating this also, and it's obviously very popular and obviously badly needed for several years. So thank you very much. I have no other report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Skanes.
Just to echo, thank Julia for taking this on. I have no report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Milton.
I had an internet connection problem earlier when Sam from the Convention Center was speaking. And so I just wanted to publicly compliment Sam. I heard great things about him. The fact that he's bonded the Hilton and the convention and the CVB and the Convention Center working together, I think is monumentous for our community. So I just wanted to make sure I was on record, just really supporting what he's done for our community.
Thank you. Then Alderman C.
Yes. So I've been sort of following the trends here about what other cities are doing with their mask mandates. There's been a lot of information come down as of late. CDC rolled out some new guidelines, which were a lot more lax than I thought they would be. And I think Alderman Skanes alerted to me to this Greene County Springfield Health video that was out there that they presented after their meeting at a council meeting luncheon. And I would urge everybody to look at that. And this leads up to what I'm trying to say. I would like to ask our administration to put our mask ordinance or facial covering ordinance on the agenda for our April 22nd study session, which is already scheduled, but I would like to have that added to it. I think that we need to start looking forward about opening up discussions to start looking at what's ahead of us. It seems like things are turning around for the better. We're not anywhere near, home yet, but I think we can get our healthcare professionals, the public input, and all start heading the same direction as us both just going opposite directions. So, I know there's a lot of cities out there considering this, but I would base it on, we need to get with our healthcare professionals, anybody that we can get to and dig into the toolbox and get input that is usable to us, metrics, milestones, benchmarks where we would like to see this. So, so I would like to sponsor a bill for consideration by the entire board to be put on our May 11th regular Board of Alderman meeting. And so after the study session, I think we should put it on the agenda for May 11th and open it up to discussion to the public. And if we decide we want to move forward, we could do a second reading on the 25th. And, you know, we may be at that time, we may realize that we're not there yet, but at least we'll have the discussions on it. And if everybody's in the, you know, decides that they like what they've seen, they like what they've heard, you know, this is something that we may be able to take care of a week before Memorial Day. So I would just like to see that get on the study session, and, you know, I would like to sponsor that to get it on the May agendas.
All right. I think if I remember correctly, the process is you've asked for it, the administration can put it into the study session that we have. I think technically, I think we're supposed to have 2 aldermen that request that, and so I don't think there's any problem with two folks saying that. I see one other thumbs up, so there's agreement. And so we'll ask staff to set up the process, and this gives them the warning they need, obviously, to be able to get information together. We don't hit them cold, and be able to present and then gather the key people that we need to have in that study session so that we can get the quality information we need. Thank you, Mr. Alderman C. Assistant Administrator Manning, do you have any comments for us?
Hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say thanks to Alderman C for reaching out to us today to sit down and have that meeting with myself and Ted and Chris to help, you know, facilitate this sponsorship of what he's looking for. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Obviously, we've had a very busy meeting tonight. I really I appreciate the discussion and the concerns. We don't have to agree, but we can agree to disagree and get on down the road and get things done. I appreciate the fact that we all have our own thoughts and our feelings about certain things. Just a couple comments on the reports that were given. Larry, I think you asked about the CARES money. If I remember Jonas correctly, it was something close to $3 million. And the city of Branson West and the city of Branson both had ordinances in regard to face coverings, and that was part of the criteria for the federal government to give those funds for marketing. And so there was a real shot in the arm to continue to market our area. And then obviously the end results of some of that have been that we've had a nice recognition from the travel agencies and travel world about our city and the safety of our city. We need to get the vote out. We need to ask citizens to do their homework. We cannot support, for instance, directly certain things, but we can share with people and talk with them, and people will ask us questions. Let's see. I think that's basically all I wanted to mention is that I'm seeing and hearing with reports we had tonight from both the chamber and from the convention center good things, and the potential and the key is will visitors want to come visit us and bring their money and spend their money here? And we've got to make sure that we're meeting what they want us to do so that they will come. And so we'll work hard at doing that. And with that, I'll close my comments, and I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you now provide a roll call vote?
Dean,
Absolutely. Yes.
Whitus,
Yes.
Simmons,
Yes.
Gaines. You're
You're muted.
Yes.
Milton,
Yes.
C.
Yes.
The vote is 6-0. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned. Have a good evening.